Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the one that we've all been waiting for. This is the Radical SimRacing World Finals in 2025, coming to you live. First of all, from Watkins Glen. Later on, we'll be at the Hockenheim circuit, I believe, for the second race of each of our categories. The Am and Pro Championships on display tonight. Last week at the qualifiers, it was just the Pro class, of course, to settle who is going to be here tonight. Myself, Ian O'Leary, and Ron Mans will be taking you through commentary with Romero, Augustin Cisneros behind the cameras. And Ron, this is the one that the whole year has been building up to.
Yeah, ever since we got the Americas and European Championships started up all the way back in the late winter of this year, it was all leading to this point now in November when we get to crown a new series of champions. We got some 2024 champions looking to try and retain their crown, other championship winners in the Americas and European Championships looking to keep the momentum rolling. But overall, I think we're going to have some fantastic racing through the 4 races here today.
Yeah, we certainly are. These are the races, indeed. So it will be Am then Pro, then Am then Pro. Give them a little bit of a practice time between the two races. First of all, for both classes, the 45-minute races, which we haven't seen all throughout the season, but I think were quite a success last week. We'll talk about that a little bit later. 2 pit stops in a slightly condensed 45-minute race. Normally we've had 2 pit stops over an hour in the rest of the season. And then at the Hockenheim Ring, we will end the season with a 20-minute dash with no pit stops required. Times there, of course, in Central European time. It is currently 5 to 6 Central European time, just for reference there. The prizes that they're all fighting for here tonight. It's not just about making it to the World Finals. We've already had prizes for the regular season, but for the World Finals, the winner will get a 1-year iRacing subscription and Race Data AI subscription for a year. Free entry to the 2026 Championship and the World Finals of next year. The runner-up in the Pro class will get 2 tracks on iRacing, along with that 1-year Race Data AI subscription and free entry to the regular season in 2026. They will still have to qualify to the World Finals normally, though. In the Am class, iRacing credits to the equivalent of a 6 months iRacing subscription for the winner, along with that 1-year Race Data AI subscription. Free entry to the 2026 Championship and the World Finals. So same as the pros, same in that regard for the runner-up. Only free entry to the regular season. The runner-up still has to qualify normally. 1 track on iRacing and 1-year Race Data AI subscription as well. So plenty to fight for. And even if you fall a little bit short tonight and come up second, you can still win prizes. Excuse me. This is, of course, the first time we've had the European and Americas drivers together out there on the circuit. So we'll be a little bit over the course of this session here, and these sessions multiple here tonight. But first of all, it's great to have all of the different regions racing together, if you like, Ron. It's been an event dominated by the Americas region in the past, but the Europeans in the past. We'll see whether the Americas can maybe make a bit of a march this time round in 2025.
Yeah, the 2024 running of the Radical World Finals, where we went to 2 kind of similar racetracks in a sense. We went to VIR and Interlagos 1 year ago, but it was just European dominance both on the Pro and Am side of things. So here, I think we got a much stronger America's contingent. Of course, here is one of them right now that we're following, our RaceSpotTV colleague, Mr. Jared Gregory, along with your Am class vice champion in the Americas category, Jared Dunkovich, slotted in P5. Colby Buck, another one of those Am class racers from the Americas Championship, looking to try and impress here. I'm looking through the running order and trying to see the highest up Am driver. I believe it is Jose Gonzalez, your Am class champion from 2025, slotted in 4th, right in front of his vice champion in P5.
Yeah, you are correct. The first driver not here, unfortunately, I think is John Benelid. I can't see in this field at the moment. He did qualify, so did Joel Jacklin, Cedric Ohayon and Colby Buck from the Americas Championship. Colby Buck is here, so is Joel Jacklin, but I don't think Cedric Ohayon is here at the moment. Still time for that to change, of course. This is a different time, of course, to what we normally see. I mean, anyone on the west coast of America at the moment will be getting up relatively early in the morning for a Sunday. Currently just coming up to 9 a.m. In the morning, midday over on the east coast. So it's not too bad. It's quite a nice time for everybody, and it's the same time as last week. want to preview this 45-minute race first of all, though, because we saw it for the first time last week in the pro qualifiers. Now, we were meant to have a qualifier for the AMs as well, but all of these drivers were, well, some of them would have gone through anyway, but all of them who were provisionally in the qualifiers just went straight through into the World Finals, so no need for a qualifier last week. But I thought the 45-minute race was actually quite a success. I quite enjoyed it. It felt like the one-hour race is just condensed slightly into 45 minutes rather than 60.
And, you know, I will say, and this is honest, in the 2024 Radical European and America's Championships, we are running the 45-minute long races. However, it was slightly different with a slightly retooled format and only one pit stop. But the 2 pit stops in these 45-minute long races, I think, gave us a heck of a lot of entertainment 1 week ago at Monza. Of course, that track is super slipstream heavy, but as too are the tracks that we're racing at here today. Watkins Glen, we saw this past Friday in the 2100 GMT broadcasted official race. That was a banger. That was a pretty darn good race, with the last lap being truly dramatic. Maybe a preview of what's to come in those pro races with 2 very successful drivers running in that fight. But then the Hockenheim Ring, we saw that track play host to an official race a couple of weeks ago, and that race was pretty awesome as well. I have a feeling that we're going to be in for a bit of a draft fest more often than not, but I don't think we're going to complain from our perspective in the broadcast booth, because that's just going to mean we have a whole lot of racing action to talk about.
Yeah, it will certainly be about the draft a little bit, but, you know, don't you think that actually on Friday when we saw this track in particular, maybe that applies less to Hockenheim, but it feels to me like the racing was actually quite difficult side by side. There's only one line really through the bus stop chicane, and that's of course where the slipstream comes to an end at the end of that straight there. And yeah, to me, this is I think going to be much harder than the 20-minute race at Hockenheim, which really is going to be a big dash at the end of the day.
Yeah, that is a good point that you bring up there, and I think I'm trying to think of the best way to sum it up, really. It's like trying to hit a baseball, and you got 2 options. You're either going to crack open a grand slam, or you're going to strike out. That's basically the overtaking opportunities that you have here. If you can't get it done in spectacular fashion heading down to the bus stop, it's a very difficult road to try and get past. There's a couple of opportunities through the boot, maybe a lunge down into turn number 9 as you come out of the boot back onto the main circuit. But outside of that, really just that back straightaway and the long flat out blast leading up to it is the best spot to get a move done. And it is very easy though, so we'll have to see how it all balances out.
Well, we certainly will. Just receiving news, by the way, that sadly John Benlid and Cedric Ohion have been visiting the Vegas Grand Prix and couldn't make it back in time. Because it was a Sunday, I thought, why have they come back early? But indeed, that's not how it works. So there we go. Anyway, I won't spoil the result for anybody who hasn't watched it yet. But there you go.
Now, what about that asteroid that hit turn 5?
Yeah, amazing. I haven't actually watched it either, although I know the results, so there we go. Meantime, qualifying is underway. The session actually just opening for the pro drivers at the moment, so it's going to be pretty much constant action tonight. We're going to be, I feel sorry for Ramiro, who's going to have his hands everywhere at the changeovers here. Today we've got 4 races and 4 different servers to join, and all sorts going on tonight, so do bear with us. But yes, it's going to be constant racing, and over 2 hours of actual racing over the course of this broadcast, which should take you through the next few hours into the evening here in Europe. So yeah, I hope you're going to enjoy it here, the final Radical Sim Racing World Championship broadcast this season. After 10 rounds of regular season racing in the European and America's Championships, and indeed a qualifier for those in the pro class as well, it's time for the final races of the year, and qualifying indeed is just underway. First driver, actually, some of the drivers have actually gotten away quite slowly here and taking their time getting going, but I think Benito Gonzalez is the first out there on the circuit in 101, and that is going to be the benchmark to set. But this is a 10-minute session, and I think we're going to see a session where you're going to want to be at the front, because as we saw on Friday, that run over the top of the hill can be very, very dangerous here.
Yeah, it can be absolutely brutal. The thing is with these Radical SR10s, if they're in a groove, they're absolute beasts on the racetrack, but it being a beast, it kind of lends itself towards the other direction. If it's uncomfortable around any part of this racetrack, either you hit a bump in an odd way, the weight transfer starts to screw you up, maybe there's a little bit of damage, whatever the case may be, this beast can bite, and in the process of biting you, it will probably rip your head off. This track is one where it'll bite you as well, so with a car that can be a little bit hair-raising, a track that can be a little bit hair-raising, I think it's a real big emphasis on the driver's skill and the driver's comfort level here in these SR10s as well. I think this is an absolutely amazing track to play host to the 2025 World Finals. The drafting opportunity going to give us a heck of a lot to talk about, but the challenge of the circuit gives us a lot to talk about even here in qualifying.
So out of the final corner for the first time, and the benchmarks are about to be set by these drivers in the AM Championship here tonight. Let's see what the benchmark is. Just inside the 40s for Gonzalez. Luke Crowley goes to the top, though, with a 40.3. That's just over half a second quicker than anybody else so far. Robert Walker in second, then Gonzalez, who we just saw over the line, but we've still got plenty to come in lap number 1. Pablo Serrano coming up towards the line now. Needs to be in the 40s as well, and I think is, yep, a second place so far. Ole Gunnar Stensrud was one of the last out there, so will take some time for him to get... In fact, he is the last one out there in car 15, and he's got a benchmark to set by Luke Crowley, which perhaps is no surprise, given his performance in the European Championship, which he won by 56 points at the end of the 10 rounds.
Yeah, Luke Crowley's super quick in these cars, but we have got a stacked field of racers. And last year in the World Finals, the AM category was super intense to keep our eyes on all event long. I have no doubts in my head that that is going to be a similar case here. As interesting to see the vice champion in the AM category in the European Championship, Eric Benson, currently slotted down in P15, only second last here in qualifying, as Ole Gunnar Stensrud drops down right behind him in P16. So waiting to see some truly representative lap times for these competitors, and they do have 4 laps to try and get the job done, but that is a little bit surprising for your vice champion in the Euro Series.
Walker now coming through the final couple of corners as well, just over half a second behind Luke Crowley as we get this second round of times underway. Crowley's now actually the first driver coming over the line each time. I think he's overtaken a few. Of course, they're in their own solo sessions here tonight. This is Walker, though, up to second, and Luke Crowley just puts himself, well, he doesn't improve, but he's still up the top. And Gonzalez, who's just within 2 tenths of him, and Dunkovic just a quarter of a second behind. Now, admittedly, Crowley didn't improve that time round. However, that is a much better sign for this session, that it's way, way closer now. Top 5 covered by less than half a second, and the top 12 by less than 1 second.
Now, I'm looking to see how close the racing is going to be here in the 2025 Radical World Finals. As someone who had the privilege to be on the call for the 2024 World Finals, I can let you know that even though it was some darn good racing, we had runaway winners in all 4 of the events, with Tom Euler grabbing the checkered flag in both of the AM races, on track to the 2025 World Finals crown for him. And over in the pro category, it was Christoph Flipp who was able to seal the deal in both of those races. Expecting a bit more frenetic racing up at the front. We've got some very competitive cars. Look at Jose Gonzalez jump up to second.
Yeah, very nicely done indeed. So, 3 different nationalities indeed in the top 3. Pretty sure Crowley's English, by the way, but let's not get into the what flag should you put next to your name if you're from my part of the world. We'll be there.
I feel like if you bring that up, I may be in the middle of a war here.
You'll be out of your depth as well, I'd imagine. You know, I'm very much stereotyping you because you're American, but I'm going out on a limb.
Oh no, it's pretty accurate. I have the IQ of a crayon.
Meantime, Jared Dunkovic through the final sector, or into the boot at least. He goes just a quarter of a second behind Luke Crowley at the moment. Benito Gonzalez goes over line and moves up to 3rd place in front of Robert Walker, who was second when he set that time, but he's not improved since then, and he's started to slip down the field. Eric Benson up to 6th place as the improvements come less thick and fast now because of these times that are getting difficult to better. James Frasnick into the pit lane could well see the end of his session, in fact, as there's only 3 minutes to go, less than, in fact, as the final couple of corners come through for Jarrett Dunkovic. Just try to open up this final turn here, and he'll be on that run to the line. trying to get close to those other Americas drivers. The two Gonzalez's, spelled differently, but they're second and third at the moment in this session. Dunkovic goes to the top. Jarrett Dunkovic with a 40.1 overtakes Luke Crowley, who still hasn't improved since that first lap time of the session.
Yes, and now the ball is in Luke Crowley's court as he heads his way off through the toe in this boot section, running it all the way out into the grass. Very lucky that he kept it on the road and didn't pick up a lap time invalidation. Let's see what sort of sector times he's looking at. 26.2 in Sector 1, a 39.8 in Sector 2, and let's see what he can do in the third and final sector here of this lap of Luke Crowley. Can jump in front of Dunkovic. That's still not going to be game, set, match, though, how close and competitive this qualifying session is. With all of the top 10 covered by less than a single second, I think this is going to be a race as not won through qualifying. You got to be there at the very end.
Here comes Luke Crowley to the line. Is this going to be better finally? Still no improvement since the first lap time of the session. Well, he'll be pleased that he was able to get off to such a lightning start in terms of his speed, and that might help him in the race. But for this qualifying session, he needs to continue to improve as the conditions get better. Eric Benson now is really making improvements. He's a driver that maybe Crowley could learn a thing or two from, because it seems to me that Benson has improved pretty much every time he's come across the line.
And with the time running out, Luke Crowley is not going to get another time on the board. We are into crunch time, the happy minute, the final minute of this session. I think Jose Antonio Gonzalez in this number 12 car has a really good shot to walk away with the pole. Let's see what he can do as he heads his way off through the final two turns.
He's one of the last drivers who can take this away from Dunkovic now. I'd say actually he is the last one, probably, with his speed so far this season. Jose Gonzalez winning the championship in front of Dunkovic in the Americas region. Can he take pole from him? No. He's going to be fourth. He might well improve his position. No, in fact, he stays there indeed. So fourth place for Gonzalez, but it's Jarrett Dunkovic who missed out on the Americas Championship in the regular season by only 18 points to Jose Gonzalez. He's taken pole from him and the others in the European region here at Watkins Glen with a great lap, the best lap of the session, a 1:40.0, and he's taken first blood here tonight.
Yeah, and after the American drivers were shut out of the World Finals in 2024, they looked to try and make a statement, and statements have already been made with Dunkovic starting right up at the top. Let's see how this race goes, but already a strong start for Dunkovic and that entire American crew.
Let's see what this grid looks like then all the way through, with Jarrett Dunkovic on pole, as we know, ahead of Luke Crowley. Not big gaps then, back to Eric Benson and Jose Gonzalez, with Benito Gonzalez and Robert Walker on row 3. Seventh place has gone to Pablo Serrano in front of James Franznik, with Kobe Buck and Melo de Graaf running at the top 10. Gabriel Burgers, slightly surprisingly, down in 11th, ahead of Robert Neville. Then it's Joe Jacklin and J.R. Gregory, RaceSpot's own, in 14th place in car 14, with Stefan Mellis and Ole Gunnar Svensrud rounding out the 16-car AM field tonight. 36 degrees Celsius on the racetrack. It's pretty warm. That's 96 degrees Fahrenheit. And over 45 minutes, they'll just have to keep an eye on that, as no tyre changes are expected, as always, through these races.
And I think these drivers are very happy that we're running the conditions as they would be at the start and middle of spring up there in upstate New York. If we were running the conditions to how they are in real life, I mean, I know that I'm about 6 hours farther south than Watkins Glen, New York, in the city of Philadelphia, and we're nearly freezing here. So can't even imagine how cold it is up there in upstate New York. However, these racers, I think, have a very good track and a very good race that we expect to have here. Dunkovic, real life racer who has kind of grew up in New York as well. I'll have to see what he can do up at the front of the field. Certainly a strong competitor, but he's got some strong competition throughout the front of the field.
So just a couple of drivers left to grid up, and we'll be all ready to go in the Radical Sim Racing Championship World Finals in 2025. This is the AM class. Coming up later is the Pro class opener. 45 minutes in both classes here at Watkins Glen to start with. Here we go. The Radical Sim Racing Championships World Finals in 2025 is underway, and Jarrett Dunkovic from the front will try and defend his lead in towards turn 1, but Crowley gets off to a lightning start. On the outside line, he's immediately through. through into turn 1. Benson's going to be third, single file as well, followed by Benito Gonzalez, who gets into fourth, side by side further back in the pack. But as we saw on Friday, you can have trouble up the hill here, and let's hope we all do get through cleanly. The top guys are single file, down the back we're double file as they get through the narrowing section now, through the barriers, and they all get through cleanly, thankfully. Luke Crowley leads in front of Jared Dunkovic, and he consolidates that lead into the bus stop chicane for the first time.
Oh, as that's the driver cutting their course as they head their way off through there. I think that may have been Benito Gonzalez, but whoever it may be, looks like they've gone away with that somewhat scot-free as they head their way out of the carousel for the very first time. I think it was actually Serrano, my apologies, that cut the course.
Yeah, it was, and he's under pressure now from Jose Gonzalez, who's stuck in 6th place. Gabriel Berger, meantime, gets past Colby Buck. He really needs to make up places, just Berger, and he's already made up 4. He's into 7th place here. A driver you'd have expected to qualify much better. Berger, it was in 4th place in the European Championship through 2025's regular season. Made it into the World Finals pretty comfortably in the end by making the top 7, but he's only 7th place here off the start. Be disappointed with qualifying, but that's the best place to make up the positions. 4 on lap 1, and he's the biggest mover so far.
Yeah, and everybody's still trying to squabble for spots in a long race like this. It kind of does help you if you strike while the iron is hot, get off to a good start, and keep the momentum rolling through the entirety of this event. But these drivers do have to remember that you cannot win the race on lap 1, but you certainly can lose it. Everybody's gotten off to a very smooth start, though. Certainly Luke Crowley has gotten off to a good one as he's been able to jump in front of Dunkovic, holds on to that race lead. So we look at some side-by-side battling a little bit farther in the mid-pack.
That's Robert Walker looking down the inside of Colby Buck, and Walker sadly has made a bad start here. We've seen some go forwards, but I'm afraid Robert Walker is one of those who's gone backwards. He's now back to 9th from 6th place where he qualified, and now he's into the slipstream of Colby Buck here, and he's going to want to make up some of these places immediately, I'd imagine. Here he goes, inside line, looking for it in towards the bus stop. So is Berger up in front on Gonzalez. Side-by-side contact, and the first accident of the World Finals in 2025 is between Colby Buck and Robert Walker, who are now both at the back of the field.
And in side-by-side racing, heading down into the bus stop, that was an inevitability over anything else. You just can't do that, especially at the start of this race. These Radical SR10s take probably about 2.5 laps to get those tires up to temperature. You can go for a gutsy move like that once your car is actually feeling good, but in the early stages of a race like this, that's more of a kamikaze mission than anything else.
Jared Dunkovic here still behind Luke Crowley, and I get the feeling here early on, and it is early, but I get the feeling he is lifting off and trying to save fuel a little bit behind Luke Crowley out front here. He just seems to me to be backing away somewhat into some of these corners and trying to benefit his own race coming up a little bit later on when we have to make those pit stops.
Oh, that's a fantastic point that you bring up there, you. And the fuel saving may be a big factor in this race as we take a look at a replay to see this drama with Colby Buck and Robert Walker. Walker goes for the move down the inside into the turn. There's the contact. That angle didn't really show too much, but I feel like we can't really assign blame on one or the other. It takes 2 to tango, and that situation, I think both racers kind of contributed to that accident taking place.
Yeah, quite possibly. I mean, I spoke about it earlier, but it is so hard to go side by side through the bus stop there. It comes at the end of the long slipstream section. And listen to it. Just seems to me to be breathing off the throttle. Just Jared Dunkovic there, so trying to help himself a little bit later on in the race. Eric Benson's trying his hardest to stay with them, but it is quite difficult. Pablo Serrano now in front of Gonzalez. I think that happened on this lap, maybe the previous one. Then you've got Gabriel Berger, then Jose Gonzalez, James Franzik, Menno de Graaf, I mean, they're all here, aren't they, in this long line from that. But the top 2, while Dunkovic is fuel saving, they are quicker than the rest, it looks to me at the moment.
Yeah, it looks like they're utilizing that up front position to just drive away, drive off into the sunset. 2 very quick racers. Of course, you've got your European AM champion of 2025 and your America's vice champion in the AM category slotted right in second. I think you're exactly right there, Ewan. Talking about his fuel saving in the case of Dunkovic, it didn't seem like he was completely lifting off the throttles. They had their way down the back straightaway, but I think he was probably had the throttle cracked open to about 40-50%. It didn't seem like he was going going full throttle at all. And I think that's part of the reason why it's allowed these top three to still be somewhat close. I wouldn't say that Eric Benson is right there, but he's certainly within arm's reach of those racers right in front. They are looking to utilize a little bit of fuel saving, maybe a little bit of pseudo teamwork, just to say, okay, we're all going to try and throw bare knuckle fists at each other come time for the checkered flag. But in the meantime, though, let's maybe work together a little bit to try and extend that gap so we know that we're going to be contending for a podium no matter what happens towards the end.
First pit stop of the race for Colby Book. And this is the advantage of having the fuel strategy the way that we do, is that if you have an early incident, you're not out of it completely. It does change your strategy, and his options are going to be limited a bit later, but he is allowed to stay in the race competitively as Jose Gonzalez gets back past Gabriel Berger here, who is trying his best to make his way through, but as he gets further up the field, the drivers also get better. And Jose Gonzalez, frankly, is surprising me a little bit with how far down he is actually in the field. He's 6th place right now, but perhaps more surprisingly is that he's behind 2 of his America's rivals who he was racing with through the regular season. At the moment, only 6th, though, in this race so far.
Yeah, that is a little bit surprising, the fact that he's running farther down. I think that rough start maybe got shown the door a bit, perhaps a little bit of contact could have put some damage on that race car. Whatever the case may be, this has not been a good start for him at all, and he will start to feel the pressure and the burn from Gabriel Berger right in tow. Now, many of these racers I've had the privilege of covering for coming up to nearly 3 years at this point. However, there have been a few of these racers that have actually got the opportunity to race side by side with myself. Gabriel Berger was one of them. I raced with him at Sebring quite a few moons ago in the official series. He's a darn quick racer, and we see that week in and week out whenever he's racing in these cars.
Yeah, as Gabriel Berger has decided enough is enough here. No surprise really either. I know we're only 7 minutes in, but he very much seems stuck in that midfield right now as we go back up to the leaders again. Chad Dunkovic, who's continuing to fuel save out front here behind Luke Crowley. At what point is he going to go, though? There will be a point, but I don't think that point is going to be just yet. So there he goes. This could be the story of the first part of the race, actually, and normally this is the middle part of the race where you see 2 guys running in nose to tail because it benefits both of them, but actually it also benefits these 2 at this early stage in the race as well. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Crowley run as long as he can and then come in, and then Dunkovic maybe run a lap or 2 longer because of all this fuel saving that he's been able to do behind him.
Guess we'll have to see how these racers cut it as we get to the end. I also love this as we're running on board with Luke Crowley. I like the hello RaceSpotTV sort of thing on the top of the chassis right there. That is brilliant. But are seeing some drivers shuffle around a little bit farther in the back. I think J.R. Gregory has had something go on with him. I will say, I was looking at my second monitor, seeing what was going on out there on the racetrack. I think J.R. had a little bit of contact with the car right in front of him. It may have been Stefan Mellis that he touched as they headed their way down into the bus stop. Looking to see if there's any damage on that race car. Maybe it looks like a little bit of crumpling right around what I would like to call the eye shadow surrounding both of the headlights. It looks like there's a little bit of scraping on the front end of that race car, but he's dropped down to 14th. We'll have to see what he can do trying to bounce his way back. But now that we get farther along in this event, we will be seeing those pit stops sooner rather than later, and I feel like this may be one of those races that is decided through the pit lane strategy.
Yeah, very much so. That's why it's so exciting to watch these races, because they are so changeable, and the strategy is so open. It is admittedly a little bit surprising to see 3 pit stops already, but we're certainly not complaining. That will open things out a little bit later on. Based on what we saw last week in the Pro Class qualifiers, admittedly that was at Monza, but nevertheless, you should be able to go to about 25 minutes to go, another 10 minutes, but look at these slow modes. Recently in iRacing, these curbs have been reprofiled on at Watkins Glen, especially that first one that you may have seen from these onboard shots here. It's not very visible from the TV cameras, but the onboard shots, you can see it very well. And it's a proper jump now, proper bounce over those curbs.
Yeah, all the curbs as they had their way through the bus stop used to be completely identical, just like the curbs you see on the inside of this turn here, the uphill hairpin. That is the toe, turn number 7 around this racetrack. All the curbs used to be completely identical. That was actually a change that they made to try and deter whenever NASCAR runs here at the Xfinity and Cup Series. I guess it's no longer Xfinity, it's the O'Reilly Series now, but regardless, they changed. Yeah, they changed the series as Xfinity. Their deal has officially run out, so they've now changed it to the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, which I can make many jokes about how the post-race interviews would go after that, man. It's a shame we hit the wall. The track, unfortunately, was covered in as much oil as a parking lot of your local O'Reilly Auto Parts location. But no, the chicane, the bus stop chicane, had that change of curbs, and it's really thrown a wrench in the works for these competitors, because it used to be just, okay, you either go on or off with that curb. You either be hot or cold. You can either just smash over the curb, destroy your shock absorbers, get a little bit of airtime with all 4 up off the deck, but you'd be able to go through that chicane without any further incident. Now you can't really do that, so you pretty much just have to turn it in, lightly kiss the curb, and then go through the rest of the chicane, which may seem fine on paper, but in practice in these SR10s, which can tend a bit more towards understeer, that's a lot easier said than done.
There goes Joe Jacklin ahead of Menno de Graaf. That's quite a tight line, though. He'll get away with it. In towards the bus stop chicane, and Robert Neville just sits back and watches at the moment. Here comes, Neville down the inside almost on de Graaf, who left a little bit of space open there on the inside line, which just gave Neville a half chance, but he didn't take it on the way through that time. And meantime, wow, that was a big slide for Joe Jacklin, who will have gotten off track from that, but he'll get away with it. And Menno de Graaf will just tuck in line behind. The amount of incidents, by the way, will be very important, perhaps, for deciding who's going to be champion in the World Finals here tonight, because that is the third tiebreaker. If the best finishing position of both drivers, and indeed their best qualifying result, is the same, then it will be the driver with the fewer incidents combined from both races who will take the title. So that is going to be very important to watch at some point in this race. But based on what you said about last year's event, Ron, I do wonder how likely it is we're going to get 2 identical results or 2 mirrored results. I mean, at the moment, it's entirely possible Crowley and Dungovich could finish one way round for this race and the other way for the next race. But we'll just have to see.
Yeah, now when it comes to these racers finishing and deciding who wins the 2025 Radical World Finals, there are points that are awarded. You get 30 points for a win in these races, and they tally it up accordingly. And there are tiebreaker connotations and all that stuff. Just a reminder to all you folks in terms of how the system works. But these racers just want to go for all-out glory as we got this side-by-side battle going on. That may turn into a 3-wide fight. Holy cow, that's Menno de Graaf sweeping around the outside. He gets that move done.
That was very nicely done, especially considering he's on such a tight line there, which I'm continuing to fear is not going to work. But for these 3, it is working. Oh, I'm not sure whether he touched the wall there, de Graaf, or whether he just went off screen, but he got very close if he didn't. And Joe Jacklin will just get a bit closer to him as a result. This is a proper battle here for 8th place. And again, they are taking each other out of the race a little bit, but it's an entertaining fight between these 3 nonetheless.
Oh, it is an absolutely fantastic battle. These racers know what's at stake, and they're going to go for all-out glory in this race, as I said a few moments ago, as the front is rather tame and actually has turned into a 2-car breakaway, as Eric Benson has pretty much found himself floating out in the middle of the ocean. About 3 seconds farther up the road, you find your race leaders, and you have to go 3 seconds back nearly to find this car of Pablo Serrano in the number 16 machine. That battle may flare up between Serrano and Gonzalez here in the not-too-far-off future. James Franznik a little bit farther behind us. Benito Gonzalez, the Mexican behind the wheel of the 101 car, just the latest racer to make that call to come down pit lane. The pit stops, I feel it started off as a slow trickle. I think it's going to turn into a full-on monsoon here shortly. Yeah,
I think so. In the next 3 laps or so. It's a very slow pit lane here, making their way all the way down to the very end of the lane where all the 16 pit boxes for these drivers are situated, everyone getting their own. And Gonzalez pulls to a stop, and we'll see how long his stop is indeed in a moment, as Neville and de Graaf again run nose to tail here. Neville will stay in front pretty easily. Joel Jacklin's lost a lot of time here, and Stefan Mellis now goes through into 9th position. So Another change inside the top 10 there, but we're approaching half an hour to go in this opening race in the Radical Sim Racing Championship World Finals for 2025. And Luke Crowley is still leading the way in front of Jout Dunkovic, who's not quite as close, I think, as what it was previously. These guys behind are being distanced, I would say, at the moment, though, in the third place on back region. Even Eric Benson can't keep up with those two leaders at a circuit where you can stay close with the slipstream, but it's not easy to stay in that tow.
Oh yeah, it is not easy at all. With the amount of turns around this racetrack, the dirty air will play a factor. These SR10s do a wonderful job providing some absolutely fantastic racing. It's not like the kind of reputation the Formula One has had over the past few years of like, oh yeah, the dirty air completely ruins all the racing. The dirty air is strong in these SR10s, can add in a little bit of tire scrub. However, the draft is strong enough as well where the two kind of balance out. And these cars, a bit mechanical grip monsters, I think would probably be a good way to describe them. They do have a lot of aero grip, but the mechanical grip is pretty strong as well.
Here comes Jose Gonzalez on the back of Pablo Serrano. Gonzalez starting to grow into this race a little bit, and he's now up to 4th. So a nice pass, a pretty easy pass really, using the slipstream on the back straight there. But unfortunately, you get the feeling Gonzalez has just woken up in this race a little bit too late, because he's rather let the front two get away to the tune of 6.5 seconds, and that's going to be difficult to catch in half an hour.
Yeah, that's a problem with having a rough start to one of these races. 45 minutes is a whole lot of time, but there's only so much you can do once something starts. I think the saying is usually said in some of my favorite winter sports, bobsled, luge, all those sports where they get on the sled and go down the track. They always say a 1/10 of a second loss at the top of the hill will snowball into you losing about 1.5 seconds come time for the bottom. If you start one of these races off on a bad note, dropping down behind some cars that you may not have had in mind, or maybe just not making up the time that you wanted after a rough qualifying, can be really rough. As here comes Luke Crowley making the entrance down pit lane.
Yeah, and sticking to the yellow line as well there, as Dunkovic runs right round the outside of him. That's why we have implemented the rule, actually, to make the drivers stay below that yellow line and make it very, very clear to the driver behind that you are indeed coming into the pit lane. So let's just keep an eye on this pit stop here for Luke Crowley. So far, the pit stops have been anywhere from a high 9 seconds to 15.8, which is the longest stop so far from Joel Jacklin, who's now at the back of the field, actually behind JR Gregory as well. But let's see how long Crowley is stopped for. It's just in behind him, Eric Benson pulls into line. Is he going to short field to try and get with the leaders here, or is Crowley going to be in for a relatively short time anyway? It's sort of middle, 12.5 seconds, but Benson does go short. 9.3 seconds. He wants to be back with the leaders.
Yeah, and right as we said that the strategy was going to try and affect this race, I think we're going to see that played a whole lot throughout all 4 of the races, the 2 here at the Glen and the 2 coming up at the Hockenheim Ring. The strategy we saw all season long in the Americas Championship together, Ian. I'm sure you also saw it a heck of a lot in the European Championship as well, in those 60-minute long races. The pit stops always deciding who's going to come out of these races smelling like a rose and who is going to come out of it smelling like a bucket of horse manure. That's the worry that these competitors have to have. As much as you got 4 races, 2 for each division, this race still plays the exact amount of points as the sprints coming up later on. So you need to master that strategy. May not be something you have to worry about all day, but it's still a big worry for these competitors.
So how long do these guys out front actually choose to wait here? Dunkovic is going to go on, but no, he's not, sorry. Dunkovic is in after a lap. Gonzalez and Serrano come in as well. Oh, a spin! A spin for Robert Neville coming out of turn 9, right in front of Menno de Graaf and Stefan Mellis, and he's trying to get going before the leaders are onto him, but he's got to get on with this quickly, and he's going to tow. He's going to tow. We'll get a replay of that in a moment, but let's just see this pit stop here in a moment from Jarek Dunkovic, and where he indeed rejoins. There is Dunkovic, there's Dunkovic now just coming through into his pit box. That was Gonzalez and Serrano coming past Neville, who will have some repairs. As I say, we'll see a replay in a moment, but but what's this rejoin going to be? Junkovic, 10.8 seconds. He wants a shorter time in the box here compared to Luke Crowley. 1.7 seconds shorter indeed it was, and despite the fact he was behind before, he's going to be in the lead of the opening race in the World Finals here this year. He's a second and a half in front, although Crowley will gain all the way down the back straight because going round turn one and exiting properly is a bit quicker. Junkovic, though, has a gap that will break the slipstream to the driver he's been battling with in the first part of the race.
Yeah, as much as he holds on to that gap, now is the crunch time for Crowley. He's got to push for Dunkovic. He's got to keep it on the road. As I said, right towards the top end of the show, these tires take a while to get up to temperature. As much as you're not changing tires in these stops, still running down pit lane can cool them off quite a lot, as that was a sledgehammer shot into the Armco barrier for Robert Neville. Nice evasive action there, I believe, unless I'm very much mistaken. That was Benito Gonzalez potentially taking the evasive maneuver to avoid that car. But either way, unfortunate moment for Neville heading out of turn number 9. That turn is my mortal enemy racing around this track that I absolutely adore. Every turn I love. That turn, however, has a special place of hatred inside of my brain. I think Robert Neville can join in that as well. But Dunkovic, it looks like he's gone out of the worrisome zone. He's been able to hold on to that gap, and probably now has those tires close to temperature.
Well, he's still at least a second behind here. As we go out to Gabriel Berger, who's just in behind Gonzalez and Serrano. He made an early stop, of course, did Berger, and now he's up to 6th. Benito Gonzalez lost quite a lot of places during that cycle, and he's now 8th, though one of the longest stops of the session from him. De Graaf and Melis took on the longest, though. They were over 17 seconds in the box. I expect to see them go on longest, but the first driver in should be, if not Eric Benson, then it will be Colby Book, who's actually been out there for quite some time. He'll be pitting as pretty much early as it is possible to pit and make it to the end of the race, I think. He was in very, very early in the first round of stops. But here are the battles further back. And this is where you have to be careful not to trip over one another. Jacqueline down the inside of Melis, and JL Gregory wants to follow through as well. They all want to get on with their strategy as best as they can, but that's not quite so simple. Not as simple as it sounds anyway, as Melis comes back again on Jacqueline over the top of the hill. Oh, that's close over the top there, and very nearly our first accident over the top of the hill there as well.
Oh, it is so close in these SR10s, as look at J.R. Gregory trying to make it 3 wide as they headed their way down the back straightaway, maybe giving a slight bump to Jacqueline. It works out well as these racers go through that turn. Jacqueline able to jump up to P13, holding on to that spot right now. Stefan Melis right in tow. J.R. Gregory got to turn this into a 3-car fight. That's the thing that I love about this radical sim racing community, whether it be in the officials, whether it be in the Americas or the European Championship, the World Finals qualifier 1 week ago at Monza, or the World Finals here today. These racers, doesn't matter what position they're running in, they are going to put in a battle and give us one hell of a fight to talk about here in the broadcast booth.
Well, they certainly are. And as I say, normally at this stage in the race, we don't actually get that so much, but looks like we are going to get it this time around because, yeah, it's the World Finals after all, and everybody's got a lot to fight for here. Now that we've seen, by the way, half of this race and a full race last week, what have you made of the 45-minute condensing of these longer races? Still 2 pit stops, still the same format effectively as what we've seen all season, but just a slightly shorter race and a reduction of those middle laps where not much, in truth, was really going on in those 1-hour races because everybody was worried about battling themselves away from their strategy that they'd imposed from the start of the day. If they aren't going to fight, then that period of the race is a lot shorter now than it was.
I think these 45-minute long races with a 2 pit stop format have really proved to be a hit. I mean, that race at Monza 1 week ago and deciding the final few drivers to make it into the World Finals, that was awesome. This race is proving to be a pretty darn good one as well. I think the format has really proved itself to be a good one. Talked about this right towards the top of the show, how last year in the European and Americas Championship, we ran 45-minute long races with just 1 pit stop. And if I'm being honest, those races were a bit of a snoozer at some points in time. I think this format, working with 45-minute long races and the 2 pit stops, I think that could work out well. We can maybe see a little bit of a hybrid kind of crossover of the 24 formats and the 25, because in 2024 they also had a 15-minute long sprint before the 45-minute long race. So who knows, maybe you'll see that come time for 2026. But I've really enjoyed this 45-minute long 2 pit stop format. It's proved to be a good one for these racers as well. Still gives them that strategy so they can bang their brain cells together to try and come up with a strategy to jump in front of one another. Gives us something to speculate here in the broadcast booth as well. And plus, the racing out there has been absolutely phenomenal, as this battle may be on screen right now.
A great run for Jose Gonzalez here on Pablo Serrano, his fellow Spanish speaker by the looks of things, through into 4th position quite nicely. And that's just an amicable exchange of places here. I do actually wonder when they're in these kind of groups, and as I say, this part of the race isn't going to last too much longer anyway, since we're in the last 20 minutes now. And as I say, watch out for Colby Buck and Eric Benson to kick off these final pit stops in a moment. But I wonder if it is actually quicker to allow that driver behind to slipstream straight past you on the back straight there towards the bus stop, or whether it's quicker to just lift off there, or beneficial at least for Gonzalez to lift off there and let Pablo Serrano get on with it.
You know, this is going to be an odd comparison, but I need everybody to stay with me here. I cover a lot of Formula V action on iRacing. There's a Formula V series that I cover pretty much every single Saturday and have done for well over a year at this point. Now, if anybody tuned in to the Formula V race, the first race of the day for yesterday's SCCA iRacing runoffs, you know that the Formula Vs are draft monsters. I think the SR10s are in that top 3 for road course drafters in my book, along with the likes of the Spec Racer Ford, the FV, and of course this Radical SR10. Very strong drafters these cars are, and in those Formula V races, you tend to see a little bit of give and take. You gotta say, okay, we're not really working out right now, let's swap-a-roo. Another comparison I can kind of give is right towards the start of the 2010s in the NASCAR side of things, when the tandem draft existed. 2 cars would link up together, work together, and you'd eventually have to have them swap around. Now, that was mainly just down to trying to preserve engine temperature, but sometimes here, just trying to get the most speed, you can benefit saying, okay, I'm just gonna let you go so you don't have to lift and slow down from what could have been 160 miles an hour at the end of one of these straightaways down to about 145. So I think we may be seeing a lot of that throughout today, both of course here at Watkins Glen, which we have already seen thus far, and later on today when the other 2 classes rock up to Hockenheim.
Indeed, yeah. Track we've already seen in this season of iRacing for these cars. As Gabriel Berger goes a bit wide there, James Franznik goes looking down the inside. I can't remember how many weeks ago it was actually for Hockenheim. I'll get my results out for a moment from our Friday broadcast, but Franznik is putting a lot of pressure on Gabriel Berger, and for whatever reason, Berger really struggling here, and I'm not entirely sure why, and they're properly fighting now too. These are 2 drivers who are on similar strategies, but Berger pitted 6 laps earlier than Franznik, who now wants to get through on him. He will go longer, Franznik, because of that, but even so, for whatever reason, Berger all out of shape here through the middle sector, and that stemmed right the way back from the outer loop there, where he was really wide.
Yeah, something must have happened to him, because James Franznik really tried to apply the pressure. I mean, going for a move, heading down into the toe, turn number 7, that uphill hairpin, that is a gutsy spot to try and go for a move. So I think James Franznik, he must have been having a strong smell of blood in the water to say, you know what, I feel so confident I can go for this move, as that was Serrano. Hop the berm, hop, skip, and a jump over the outside curb coming out turn number 1, and he actually hit the safer barrier on the outside there. That was a huge moment for the 16.
He's definitively behind Jose Gonzalez now, who is not even being drafted from Serrano anymore. Joe Gregory, by the way, has been in for some time now. He's got damage, is he? Okay.
Yeah, he's
hadn't
that
seen
car.
that.
Yeah. Sorry to budge in. I was just looking at the left-hand side of that car of Serrano. That side of that car looks all sorts of squirrely. I mean, you can see how much time he's lost to Gonzalez. He may very well affect that Berger and Franznik battle. Sorry to jump in there, and I just wanted to airdrop that in as it popped across my head.
No, that's all right. I hadn't seen that Zhao had such trouble. He's the second driver to have major damage that's needed repairing. This is Pablo Serrano's moment a couple of moments ago, just bobbling over those curves, and he does hit that barrier relatively hard, but he'll get away with that. No obvious damage there, no visual damage anyway to car 16, so he should get away with that as Berger and Franznik continue to fight away. We're just approaching now the final third of this race, and as I mentioned, well, apart from Joe Gregory, of course, the first stop should be for Benson or Colby Book. And there goes Benson, so right on cue. Last third of the race, and here we go. Benson making his stop. The only disadvantage being, of course, well, not the only one, but one of them being that he may well come out in traffic here. Let's see.
Yeah, now with that second pit stop round coming out, we're going to see how well these racers have been able to set themselves up for this second stop. But right now, I think our attention is both on this Berger and Franznik battle. Looked like a little bit of damage on Berger's car as well, as we take a look at what happened with J.R. Gregory.
So it's almost exactly what happened to Robert Neville. Big damage on the left-hand side, and that front left tyre is toast. He has to come in and repair that now, and is still doing so. Past 3 minutes. Oh, Berger trying to re-overtake James Franznik, who has now made up 2 places, one with the stop of Eric Benson, who has come out in clean air, by the way, just in front of Joel Jacklin. And Gabriel Berger, he's got chronic understeer here, Berger, and almost making me wonder if he's got damage, because let's just see, stay on board here through this next straight. I think he's slightly left-hand down. Let's see. Maybe not too much, but that car is chronically understeery at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, these SR10s are usually pretty rough in terms of the understeer as well, but even then, I saw a little bit earlier on, I wonder if I could maybe see it again. There was some damage on Gabriel Berger's car, so lots of racers getting some war wounds. We saw that, of course, with J.R. Gregory, saw that a few moments ago with Pablo Serrano, as he's got damage on the left-hand side. Now it looks like Gabriel Berger has some damage on that race car as well. It's a good help under the bright sun here at Watkins Glen to have some slightly darker colored race cars, like the dark green and black livery that's on Gabriel Berger's machine. You can see the white scraping all around that race car. And these cars, even though they may seem like regular old sports cars where you can beat the fenders off and they won't drive too bad, these cars are super aero sensitive. So if you have a slight tweak to the front splitter, your handling is going to be shot. If you have a slight tweak to the side pods, you're really going to be affected. And around this track as well, that can also hurt you in the straight line speed department too.
More pit stops here. Robert Walker and Colby Book both into the pit lane. Gabriel Berger should be next anyway. I'm surprised now that we're in the window where he can stop and make it to the end that he hasn't come in, because it seems that he is very much struggling. But this is the front two. Jarek Tungovic versus Luke Crowley. It won't be too far away from pit stops. I would guess within 5 or 6 maybe. Well, I suppose that is quite a long way away for Tungovic and Crowley. They didn't go quite long in their first stints, but there is only 13 minutes to go, so maybe it'll be much shorter than that as far as a fuel stop goes. But this has been a proper race between these two. Tungovic was drafting off of Crowley and lifting off quite a lot through the first part of the race, but they've been pushing 100% through this middle part here, and they have been trading lap times, barely a 100th of a second between them.
Yeah, this has been a fantastic battle between these competitors all race long, just running tit for tat on the lap times, going close and banging wheels out there on the circuit. I gotta say, for the first race of the day to get this up and rolling, these AM class competitors have put on a fantastic show, and the show is still far from over. Expecting a grandstand finish between these two up the front of Tungovic and Luke Crowley, as James Franznik and Gabriel Berger, the two drivers who were scrapping it out not too long ago, have made the call to come down pit lane, and they are joined in the pits by Benito Gonzalez.
Yeah, they are indeed. So that leaves us with, well, still quite a few pit stops to still happen, actually. Benson's come out ahead of quite a few people who haven't stopped yet, indeed, in 10th place. Oh, black flag for Benito Gonzalez. He might have sped on pit lane. Ole Gunnar Strenstrud in the background does get down to the speed limit in time. You can see him in the yellow, but that's our first one of the day. It is a difficult pit entry here, and of course this is an imposed rule by our series that the guys have to stay within that yellow line on the inside of the final corner there when they are coming into pit lane, and he's forgot to uncheck his tyres, I think, as well.
Yeah, so this is pretty much Benito Gonzalez's race completely unraveling. Not only is he going to be down pit lane for so much longer, he's got that penalty as well. So that's going to take Benito out of this race. I think he's only going to be in front of one car, and that is Jared Gregory, who's decided to call it a day. We'll see him back out on the racetrack for the Hockenheim Ring round a little bit later on this afternoon / evening, wherever it is for you around the world. But that's the first driver that we've seen really get bit by the tricky and rather odd pit entry here at Watkins Glen. Let's see how Dunkovich can manage this. He's down pit lane too.
Yeah, and Crowley wasn't interrupted, I don't think, quite by that stop. So he'll be able to continue on, I'd imagine, for another lap or two. We'll see whether he elects to actually do that, because there are only 10 minutes remaining. He might want to get in and get his stop over with very, very quickly. But on the bottom of your screen, meantime, further down the field, there are also other battles going on. Robert Walker and Ole Gunnar Strensrud for 12th place at the bottom there. There's Crowley now, who is now making his way down the back straight. Dunkovich hits his marks nicely. Now let's time this one and see how long the stop is going to be. Should be over 10 seconds. No, indeed, it's 9.5. So Dunkovich with a nice stop there. That's the target now for Crowley. He's ideally got to have a less than 9-second pit stop in this second of the day.
Yeah, and he's also got to master the entry and the exit. You've got two very sharp turns when you head your way through pit lane here at Watkins Glen, stuck on the inside line through the final corner, which can help you out a little bit. There is a little bit of banking to help you out. The turn coming out of the pits, though, it's downhill off camber. There's a barrier there on the outside, and the tires are going to be ice cold. That is a real tough go of things as you head your way out of the pit lane. Joseph Newgarden back in 2017, the last time IndyCar raced here back in 2017, he actually crashed on pit exit in some cold and damp conditions, then have some pretty nice track conditions for these racers, mind you. That pit exit is also going to be dirty and dusty, so Luke Crowley really needs to try and apply some pressure, go 10/10. Does he do that, though? Because we still have another race to go on later on today. Winning this would certainly be good, but if he ends up with a DNF, that would be a real sting.
Yeah, it definitely would. Now, Crowley responds. He may not have been able to go any further anyway, but it's only a lap later he has come into pit lane here. He's one of only a few drivers who have to still stop here. Jose Gonzalez, another one who's in now. Joel Jacklin, Stefan Mellis still have to make their final stops, as well as Robert Neville, of course, but he is a long way down after his damage earlier on. Crowley hits his marks nicely in the second box, of course, after qualifying in second position. Dunkovich coming down the front straight. Oh, and Crowley goes up on the jacks. Oh, has he made a critical error here, Luke Crowley? Jared Dunkovich is going to lead this race by multiple seconds here, and Jose Gonzalez might even get close to Crowley. Now, surely that wasn't a tactical choice from Luke Crowley, who's even behind Eric Benson. Benson's going to be coming through here in a moment. Indeed, there he goes into second. Luke Crowley makes a mistake. Surely it's a mistake in the final 10 minutes of this race, and Jared Dunkovich leads by nearly 10 seconds here. Luke Crowley's going to try and get second immediately. He doesn't want to let this get silly now with Eric Benson, and he's going to just draft straight past him as he in towards the bus stop chicane. He will do. He's quite wide, and he will just put it back onto the line in time. As gets away with it. Benson has to tuck in, but Luke Crowley makes a critical error that may well have cost him race one of the World Finals tonight.
And that is massive. That is huge, but such an easy mistake to make as well. One thing that sim racers have that regular racers don't is the fact that they have the challenge of trying to master their own strategy while out there on the circuit. And it could be a matter of just a couple of pixels between you clicking or unclicking that tire box. I've done it. We've seen many a racer do it. Even your America's Pro Champion of Aiden Young, a fantastic sim racer in his own right, was able to seal the deal on that championship with a race to spare. Even he did it in his series debut at the Nordschleife all the way back in round one back in February of this year. It's an easy mistake to make, and we know Luke Crowley's a quick racer. He's been in situations like this before, but it all comes down to a matter of pixels. That has most certainly decided this race could very well decide how these World Finals go in 2025.
You've got to say now, that, and we'll get to this later, but Crowley is even going back to the qualifying session for the second race at Hockenheim. He's got a qualifying pole, in my opinion. if he wants to overhaul Dunkovic. Or if he doesn't, then Dunkovic is going to be able to finish second and win the title no matter what for Luke Crowley. So, yeah, it's a bad mistake for Luke Crowley to make. But he's now got to focus on finishing second because Eric Benson's not going to let him have this one. They're both going to want to be second here, try and stay as close to Dunkovic as possible. There should be 5 laps to go. Well, maybe 4. We'll see how many there are in a moment, but only 6 minutes for Crowley to hang on now.
Yeah, so Luke Crowley, this is pretty much just damage control as we get to the very end. Don't drive too angry. Don't pick up those incident points. If you pick up those incident points, that would be a real game ender for him in a race that's already gone so sourly. I mean, that's a big kick in the shins for sure, but he does have to keep it on the road. 15x as the incident count limit before you pick up a penalty. If you hit 25, you're out of the race. You are done for. Thankfully, however, certainly being subjective in this case, if he does get disqualified, the worst he would finish is, I believe he'd be placed down behind Jared Gregory in 16th, which, considering that points are awarded all the way through to 19th place, he still wouldn't walk away from this race empty-handed. He'd have 4 points heading into that, but that would pretty much be game, set, match for him in terms of trying to win the World Finals. So all of these racers, even if they're not battling for a spot, in the case of Stefan Mellis, they're on the circuit in the number 54 car right in tow of Gabriel Berger, these racers do have to battle with the racetrack, just not their competitors.
Gabriel Berger seems to still be struggling quite a lot with that car as Joel Jacklin comes into the pit lane for the final stop of the day. For his final stop, that is. Stefan Mellis is going to continue on as well. He still has a stop to make with less than 5 minutes to go in this session. You can have a very long first stop and a very short second one, but Jarek Dunkovic hasn't put a foot wrong here. Crowley quick enough to see off Benson, but it would have been great to see these two together for a race to the finish, wouldn't it? It would have been an absolutely brilliant battle, but one of them has had a mistake-free race and one of them hasn't, and that's the difference here.
Yeah, they're both incredible racers in these SR10s, but as I said right after it happened, it's a matter of pixels between clicking that button and not clicking that button to uncheck those tires. Unfortunately, it went poorly for Luke Crowley. Certainly has shown a heck of a lot of pace. I wonder how things would have gone had that not happened. Would he have gone in front of Dunkovic? Would he have been in tow? Would Dunkovic have been able to make all that work? As we were expecting a slightly longer pit stop from Jared Dunkovic. Was Dunkovic maybe putting himself in the position to try and gain track position, but have to save some fuel? No matter what the case may be, we can think about what ifs and hypotheticals all we want. We know what happened. We know what this race is going to look like as we get into the final 3.5 minutes. Dunkovic holding on to a 9.5 second gap. So even if he does have to fuel save, he can clutch and coast and pretty much stall around half this racetrack and still probably be able to walk around with a comfortable W.
As he goes over the line there, it should indeed be 3 laps to go. Just 3.5 minutes remaining. Still plenty of time in this race for the likes of Colby Book and Menno de Graaf to settle their differences as well for 9th and 10th position. Canadian versus the Dutch driver. It will be for 8th, in fact, with Stefan Mellis finally making his pit stop 3 laps short of the checkered flag here tonight. And it is great to watch some of these drivers battling for the first time this year in the Radical Sim Racing Championship because, say, America's versus European battle is going on here. In fact, we've got a pretty even distribution, actually, of them within the top 8. 3 America's drivers and 5 Europeans. In the top 4, it's 2 and 2. So it's a very even distribution of drivers who we don't often get to see race each other.
Oh, as here we go. Colby Buck thought about trying to get the move done on the lap car. Right, actually, no, my apologies. That's Menno de Graaf trying to get the move done on Colby Buck. But either, whoa, golly. The curbs as they had their way off through the bus stop. I was looking at that car of Buck right in front. I was like, oh, that car looks like it's about to go upside down or do like a Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 like twirl trick or something going on there. But yeah, as you just said, Ian, fantastic to see the America's competitors and the European racers all start to battle. We don't usually get to see this. The closest we get to seeing it, frankly, is over in the Radical official broadcast that we do here on RaceSpotTV, also streamed on the iRacing Esports Network every single Friday. But however, that's still a bit of a small sample size. We don't get to see everybody race out there. As look at that. Holy cow. Colby Buck using all of the curb as he headed his way into the bus stop chicane, licked the stamp and sent it. I think I've seen maneuvers be done like that only in kart races, and that's about all. And even and then a kart racer's back is basically turned into dust by the end of the race. I say that as somebody who drove in karts for 10 years and now can no longer bend down to tie his own shoes without feeling some degree of major back pain.
It's a very aggressive way you have to drive through that bus stop, that's for sure. If you can get away with it, iRacing lets you do it. See, not every car you can do it in, that's for sure. As we're into the final couple of minutes now. This is one of the final battles out there on the circuit. Oh, Crowley! Crowley's dropping through the field here. A couple of mistakes late on, and it's through the bus stop chicane. He's hit the wall too. Luke Crowley's down to 5th, and are we seeing his chances at winning this World Finals coming to an end here? Luke Crowley made a mistake in the pit stops to take tyres accidentally. Now he's had a crash through the bus stop chicane, and suddenly his chances of winning here this season seem to be falling away from him.
And let's see what happened to Crowley. Was it the curb? He hit it, and yes, it was. And that is a sledgehammer shot into that safer barrier. Crowley, it was looking so good for him right towards the drop of the green flag, but things have turned from sweet to sour. That is an easy mistake to make with that killer curb on the inside, but it was also an easy mistake to put him in that spot in the first place with that slow stop. Jared Dunkovich, meanwhile, going to be taking that white flag on track for victory. Crowley, meanwhile, he's going to have a statement and hope for a little bit of lightning to catch directly on the head of Dunkovich for him to walk away from 2025 with a World Finals win.
It's a very, very big gap as well. Unfortunately for Dunkovich, the size of the victory is not taken into account. If it was, he would be a long way in front of the rest, that's for sure. Coming up towards the bus stop he goes, perhaps the most dangerous of the corners remaining. He negotiates it successfully. And you've got to say, of course, Hockenheim could be a different story. Obviously, this is America's racetrack and the next one will be European. However, this is a big, big advantage now for Dunkovich to have his closest rival finishing at best in 5th and to seemingly have so much speed over the rest of the field.
Yeah, this is a statement from Jared Dunkovich, though, in this first race. I mean, we had conversations with many of the America's racers, kind of the rat pack, as I would like to call them, between Jared Dunkovich, Ryan Odo, and Aiden Young, despite the fact that they're all competing for their own respective championships, with Young and Odo competing for the America's crown. They're all aiming for one single thing, to put America's back on the map after a disappointing run the 2024 World Finals. Jared Dunkovich not going to win the World Finals through this result and this result alone, but certainly doing himself a heck of a lot of favors come time for race number 2 at the Hockenheim ring.
Through the final corner for Jared Dunkovich, and it is a comfortable victory. The opening race of the Radical SimRacing Championship World Final for 2025 goes to Jared Dunkovich. The Americas region takes first blood with 12.5 seconds, nearly 13 seconds down to Eric Benson. But the big story, Luke Crowley, down in 5th place after qualifying in 2nd place. After leading for long periods of this race, he's barely going to get home in front of Franznik here. Clearly has damage late on. That could turn out to be a massive, massive error in the context of these World Finals by the end of, in a couple of hours' time, I should say. For Luke Crowley, that could be a big, big mistake that comes back to haunt him.
Yeah, that's going to be sticking in his head. Even if he bounces back, which could very well happen at the Hockenheim ring. We saw in the official race a couple of weeks ago how crazy and chaotic it can be there. That is still a big bounce back that he has to have in race number 2. Jared Dunkovich doing himself a lot of favors. Luke Crowley pretty much doing the exact opposite. That is a heartbreaking way for race number 1 to go for the driver who looked oh so good for oh so long, that went oh so badly, oh so quickly.
Let's have a look at the race results at the end of the first race of the day. It's Jared Dunkovich who wins by 12.7 seconds in front of Eric Benson and Jose Antonio Gonzalez. Pablo Serrano was 4th ahead of Luke Crowley, who, as we say, drops to 5th position in the end. It's James Franznik then in 6th, with Gabriel Berger a few seconds further back. Pretty sure he had damage at some point tonight as well, but never fully confirmed that. Colby Buck, Menno de Graaf and Robert Walker round out the top 10. Ole Gunnar Svensrud was next, ahead of Joel Jacklin, Stefan Mellis and Robert Neville, the last on the lead lap. Benito Gonzalez was 1 lap down after a couple of black flags tonight. J.R. Gregory's crash brought an end to his race 11 laps before the finish. as you say, nobody walks empty-handed away from this this race. 4 points going to Joe Gregory, but you've got to say Dunkovic is likely the massive favourite now going into the second race of the day. Coming up later, of course, at Hockenheim. Sorry.
Yeah, he did everything that he needed to do in this first race of the day. Put in the good drive, put in the good lap times, and was able to jump in front right at the start with that pole lap. Well done to him. Well done to all those racers, though. Through the mistakes and the smoke and the drama of that first race of the day, everybody, for the most part, kept it clean. We didn't really see too many major accidents, just a couple of one-off incidents every now and then. Well done to all those racers, because that was one heck of a fight.
It certainly was. Let's have a chat to one of them, Jarrett Dunkovic, who wins the opening race of the Radical Sim Racing World Finals for 2025. Jarrett, welcome in. Congratulations on race victory tonight. How are you feeling to get that first race under your belt and the full 30 points to your name as well?
Thank you, and thank you for having me in here. Yeah, I'm really excited. This is off to a good start. Still got another half race to go, so still got another race to go. So just gonna kind of play it cool, see what we can do. But hey, you know what? Coming out on top and starting it out with a bang is definitely feather in my cap, if you will. Yeah, I'm really happy, and this is yeah. We'll see what happens. I'm real excited about this, and it seems like this is going to be a good race going forward.
Now, Luke Crowley had the lead for a little while. You were battling with him for a long time, but of course had his problems through the pit stop and then an accident after that as well. But how were you viewing the race up until that point, up until about 10 minutes when you'd made your pit stop and you are hoping to come out in front of Luke, of course? How were you viewing the race at that stage, though?
Yeah, honestly, at that stage, it was definitely tight. I was worried about not catching him or surpassing him in the pits. I thought like it was going to be really close, especially considering he hit it a lap early. Not sure if that was just because he was getting worse fuel mileage or not, but overall, yeah, I think that it was. I was sitting there and I knew that if I just calmed down a little bit and just drove as fast as I could and be as consistent as possible, I knew that I was probably going to be able to jump in the pits. But he put up a good fight around that area and around that time in the race, and I was concerned about it a little bit, but then after the second stop and once I saw the gap between me and him and did the math, it seemed like I was probably going to jump him in the pits by the time that I did. So yeah, really put up a good fight there, and I appreciate it. And but yeah, you know what? Hey, we'll come out on top for the first round, and let's go for the second round.
Absolutely. We'll see you in about an hour, Jarrett, out there on the circuit for the Hockenheim race in a moment. But for now, congrats on the race 1 victory, and good luck for the next one.
All right, wonderful. Thanks, guys.
Thanks very much, Jarrett Dunkovic there, the winner in the first race tonight. That's the AM class of the Radical Sim Racing Championship World Finals. We have 2 classes to settle, though. The Pro class is coming up next. The qualifying session is already underway, and we can join in now live to Watkins Glen again, where there will be a 45-minute race again. Same format as before in the AM class, but it's now for the pros. This is going to be just as fierce, Ron, if not more. This has been, I think, one of the more highly anticipated World Finals as well, because this is, there's always hope for the Americas region that they'll be able to compete with some of the top Europeans, like the likes of the Lipp brothers, for example, Christoph and Sebastian Lipp and James Barry and so many of the others as well. But it feels like this year there's maybe even more hope than ever.
Honestly, looking at the field and the entry list heading off into this event, it feels like the clashing and the battle of the worlds. You have got yourself a fantastic contingent of European competitors. I mean, hey, Christoph Lipp, off the back of a win in the 2025 Radical European Championship in that pro category, he was also your 2024 World Finals winner. He's certainly going to be a strong competitor. So too will his brother Sebastian, who, despite the fact he hasn't won a championship, he's still always very fast in these race cars. Look at James Barry, your 2024 Radical European Championship winner. He's certainly going to be fast here, but that American field has got a lot of talent thrown in the midst. Aiden Young, he's here to fight, your 2025 Radical America's champion in the pro division. And we also have Andre Castro, your reigning officials champion. He won it in season 3 of 2025. He's going to look to try and hit the ground running in this event. And even discounting the champions, we have still still got some amazing drivers, the likes of Ubaldo Diaz, John Bodefer, Alfredo Malo, who was so impressive in that World Finals qualifier just 1 week ago, and including Lucas Vieira, your 2024 Radical America's champion, who despite having a really rough go of things in 25, I think he's been putting in the practice laps that he did last year. He's going to be a strong contender here today.
So far, Alberto Diaz leads this session in front of Alfredo Malo. Well, let's forget that. Hayden Young just goes to the top with his first lap time, it looks like, of the session at 39.1, which puts him to the top in front of Diaz and Malo. Then it's John Butterfoot. Andres Friedrich just gets up into 5th place in front of James Barry. Then you've got Sebastian Lip, Lucas Vieira, Christoph Lip down in 9th, Ryan Odo down in 10th. Then you've got Graham Sanders, Catil Larson. Christoph Lip now goes up to 1st. That's a bit more like it from him. Larson 12th. Havok Gullikson down in 13th. I mean, these are some top drivers who are not even scraping into the top 10 at the moment.
Yeah, well, we talked about how competitive this field was. That puts it on full display. We've got a stacked grid of racers as well. As much as we talked about the fact that in the AM Championship race that just went on, everybody was guaranteed points. Not so the case here. If any of these drivers who are looking at World Finals glory run into some trouble in any of the races, they're going to be getting a goose egg in the points column. So maybe going to apply some more pressure to these competitors to try and impress and make sure they can be there at the very end and just try and get a good result too. I mean, I'm looking through this field. It is stacked.
Yeah, it absolutely is. It's completely remarkable. What a field we've got, and what a couple of races this is going to be as well. It's going to be coming thick and fast for you tonight, by the way. At the end of this race, we'll have the final race in the AM class for the World Finals this year. John Butterfield works his way over the line now. Interested to see how John goes tonight, actually, because finished 4th in the regular season, but didn't do the last 2 races. Confirmed his place in these World Finals and then didn't go to the remainder of the regular season. I guess maybe thought he couldn't win the title, and in the end was 96 points behind Hayden Young. But interesting that he's taken some time away from this series and come back so strongly here so far in this qualifying session.
Yeah, that is quite fascinating to see, but here's a driver that I'm going to be keeping my attention on. He won in the officials just the other day. It's Andres Friedrich behind the wheel of that number 7 car. The inert team absolutely dominant here in these cars. Was able to produce a champion in the form of Christoph Lip 1 year ago in these World Finals. And of course, Christoph was able to win the season championship as well. But Andres Friedrich, a veteran of these SR10, sliding and drifting his way through the carousel right as I was hyping him up. He goes for a spin, currently qualified in P7 off the back of that official race win. I'm sure he's going to look to try and impress here today, but looking right behind him, Andre Castro, those two were the ones that gave us a grandstand finish here a matter of about 48 hours ago. And as the fates went, they're currently set to share row number 4 with each other.
Yeah, just as it goes. These things work that way sometimes, as Hayden Young now comes out of the left-hander. Alfredo Malo moves up to 3rd place in front of Alberto Diaz. Malo, one of those drivers who didn't qualify the normal way into these World Finals, had to go through last week's qualifier, which 10 of these drivers in here did. Bonus points if you can remember who they all were without looking. Hayden Young goes over the line. It's so far pole position for the Americas region, but Christoph Lip will surely have a time to respond here, unless he is not on the circuit. He is indeed still out there on the circuit, so he's going to have time to respond here. So is Sebastian Lip, actually, in the 19 car. So he will come across the line first. Andre Castro will be next. Just watch out for his time in a moment. Sebastian Lip comes straight in, so he's not going to be going any faster. Castro only gets to 6th place. Christoph Lip is the last great hope here to overtake Hayden Young in this late laps of the Watkins Glen qualifying session. Over the line. Is it enough? No, it's not quite enough. He'll be a 10th behind Hayden Young at the end of the session. That will be that. Nobody else will be able to improve from there, I wouldn't imagine. Certainly not overtake Hayden Young, who has taken pole here in the Radical Sim Racing Championship World Finals Pro Class. Such an important pole it may be as well.
That is mightily important. That is huge for him, and let's see how it's going to work out here in this round. I'm not even going to touch on what we just saw there on here. The aliens have now come officially with us. But no, that is a fantastic lap. Of all the times to strike, Aiden Young chose to strike while that iron was burning hot.
He takes pole ahead of Christoph Lipp with Alfredo Malo, maybe the surprise package of the last couple of weeks, is third ahead of Alberto Diaz. Sebastian Lipp and Andre Castro will share row 3. Castro's late improvement there got him in front of John Bodeford on Andreas Friedrich, who he was fighting with for that win on Friday, as you say. Ryan Odo and James Barry is a high-class 5th row, and outside the top 10, Lucas Vieira and Oscar Soltero on row 6. Christopher Trevane is next ahead of Graham Sanders. Kittil Larson and Havik Gullikson share row 8. But IGO Coatings, not such a great qualifying. George Gonzaga and Diego Zuccarelli round out the 9th row, Sully Rettinen and Franik Sikorsky then rounding out the top 20. Heinz Brunt, Franco Sanchez Buckley, Mehmet Berat-Akis and Bruno Vittorino round out the field. Nearly the whole field covered by less than a second as well. Slightly cooler conditions for the pro class, but I would imagine the same strategic racing. And as I say, I think that qualifying session's had quite a bearing on how these World Finals are going to go.
Here's the thing, though. As much as it may be a little bit cooler out there on the racetrack, I think these racers are going to bring the heat. Some of the best Radical SR10 drivers on iRacing, the best Radical SR10 drivers in the world for that matter, all going to be duking it out for glory and bragging rights for a whole year. And as I said right towards the start of this part of the broadcast, it feels like a battle of the giants, the battle of the worlds. Let's see who can get the job done to secure the win here in the first race for these pro drivers.
So the rest of the field now grid up at the back. Franco Sanchez Buckley, the only one we're waiting for. And we will very shortly be underway. Should be the same amount of laps, should be a similar race in some ways to what we saw in the AM class, but there's a third bigger field, and it's the pros rather than the AMs. Here we go. The first race in the Radical SimRacing Championship World Finals for pro drivers. And here we go. Aiden Young trying to get off to a good start from the front, and there's already a fanning out of 3 and 4 wide in the background. It's Malo going backwards through the middle there. He's got nowhere off this start. Young has gotten into the lead though, in front of Christoph Lipp. Then it's Alberto Diaz who's made up places, but Alfredo Malo is down 6 already. Now watch out over the top here. Andre Castro's looking down the inside. He doesn't go for it there, and thank goodness for that, because that could have been massive as they come over the top of the hill now. Oh, it's side by side and very close there. Here through the middle goes Castro. He's trying to take that fifth position away out from Bodeford and Friedrich, and he might well have it. Oh, there's contact between the Americans, and Bodeford's going to go around. He's nearly got into the wall. Castro spins. Andre Castro has spun in front of the field, and there's a car upside down. Already we've got big trouble here coming through. That bus stop's decaying for the first time. We've got a car upside down. It's George Gonzaga, who very nearly went rolling down the road. And it's trouble already for some of the top contenders. Some of the big favourites already out of the World Finals contention in 2025.
Watkins Glen bites. That was a huge coming together as they headed their way through the chicane, and what started it all was side-by-side racing into the bus stop. I said right towards the start of that AM race when drivers had a coming together through there, you just can't do it on cold tires in these SR10s. They need the tires to be up to temperature before they try and do that. Sully Reinen, he got punted off into a spin, but frankly, considering that we had drivers going upside down and nearly ballparking it out of Watkins Glen, I think he may have had the best fate of everybody. As you can see, there was a contact. Castro spins, hits the inside wall, and him rejoining the racetrack kind of stacked everybody up.
Yeah, and that was, as I say, Gonzaga, the one who went up and over. Diego Zuccarelli is already out of the race, by the way, after contact as well. There was big contact for him through here. Oh, he spun to the inside hard, and he was the one who clipped Gonzaga in the end. The others get away with it, but into the pit lane immediately. Havik Gullikson, Sully Reitinen, who drove into the pit lane, and those who had to tow, Andre Castro, George Gonzaga, and Diego Zuccarelli, who may well have seen their chances in the World Finals go up in smoke already. Look at this for Gonzaga. Unbelievable. Up and over again. Reinaldo, meanwhile, moves up into the top 5 as the 4 break away. This is why I said at the start of the day, qualifying has just been very, very important, because there's going to be trouble behind, and there's been more trouble. Lucas Vieira and Andreas Friedrich involved in it this time.
Yeah, I think Friedrich had to have had some sort of incident there with Vieira as they head their way into the bus stop. I think that's exactly what went on out there on the racetrack. As we take a look at one more view of this, Gonzaga not only got clipped by the spun car of Diego Zuccarelli, he nearly crashed into Castro as well. You're going to see it was a matter of inches between him and slamming into that car while sideways. He didn't fully end up on his lid, although he got pretty darn close to it. That is how quickly things can go from fantastic to horrendous here at Watkins Glen. No runoff area to speak of, especially through that chicane. If a driver goes off the track, they're going to bounce back into harm's way, and that crash is just going to snowball from there.
Oh, Diaz there just had to lift off through the final corners. That dirty air you were talking about in the previous race just started to bite him there. So the top four, as I say, start to get away from the rest of the field. Reinaldo is leading the charge behind in fifth. Alfredo Malo's back to sixth again after having such a disastrous launch off the line. He's doing okay now. Oscar Soltero is at the front of the next group, but look at that. Memphis Akas and John Botafour are in this time. This is what happened behind, by the way. And Malo looks to be involved. He did this in qualifying. This time, though, he spins proper. And Vieira makes contact. He goes straight on into the barrier. Friedrich's got no rear wing. There are more pit stops here. Botafour and Mehmet Beradakas are all in the pit lane as well after that second lap of the race. And this is some of the reasons why Botafour and Larson were the two caught up in that one.
As we take a look at another angle of this moment with Larson as they headed their way out of turn number 8. Bit of a bad angle there as it's caught by all the trees there on the inside, but you can still get the idea. Mehmet my apologies, that was John Botafour who spun at the front of it. Baradak is kind of piling in as there's no room to go. There's Botafour, lost it, gassing it up over that turn. Turn 9 on this racetrack is brutal because it is completely flat. It feels like the track falls away from you as you go farther out. It is such an odd turn indeed, completely flat, and when you're trying to gas it up in these SR10s that can spin up those rear tires so easily, that's when you get moments like that. It's such a shame for all the racers involved in that stack up.
It was quite something, that was, through the final, through turn 9, I should say. So, 5 minutes complete, and my goodness, that was an energetic first part of the race. Now, such is the gap created by the incident for the bottom 10 in this race, James Barry has decided that, actually, that's a big gap that I might as well go and use now. And so he's into the pit lane for the first scheduled stop, I think, of today. It might not be the worst idea. Yes, he'll have a higher fuel load on for a long time in this race, but he's going to go out and find some clean air here instead of being stuck in traffic where Diaz is at the moment. And Christoph Lipp lifting off allows Diaz to go straight through into second place.
I think Christoph Lipp may have had a bad exit coming out of there too, keeping on him and his brother Sebastian to maybe battle here sooner rather than later, or will the brotherly teamwork be the dream work to usurp the two America's racers right in front? Diaz, a Mexican, right behind Young, the American. Let's see how these racers are going to cut the end of this race. I do like that call, though, from James Barry to come down pit lane at the start of this lap. It's like using the ejector seat to get out of a fighter jet that's about to slam straight into a mountain.
I can imagine, I'm speaking to Christoph Lipp for most of this year with the end of these races, the end of the officials races on Fridays. I can imagine his reaction to that move from Diaz. And it wouldn't have been a pleasing one, I wouldn't imagine either. But he's just in front of his brother, Sebastian Lipp. And this is why these two are so good at this sort of thing. The way they've been able to qualify well, objective one, but then stay out of trouble as well has just been remarkable. And that's why they're one of the front four who, that's probably the four we've sort of whittled it down to already here as far as who's going to be world champion by the end of the day. See, we're no closer to really knowing which of the four it's going to be, and maybe Alfredo Malo and Reinaldo can get back into the fray in a moment. But it does seem that qualifying well and staying out of trouble has been the first and only objective, really, from this first part of the first race.
Yeah, I think the saying to finish first you have to finish is one that all these racers needed stapled onto their steering wheel at the very start, as it looks like Diaz is going to try and get the move done on Young. Here they go, side by side to the bus stop. That's going to be Diaz just barely squeaking through.
Young didn't want to give that up, I don't think, but he also didn't want to go side by side through the bus stop chicane, and you can't blame him for that. Oparo Diaz wants to lead laps tonight, and that's an interesting tactic considering we've seen Tunkovic in that first race, hanging back through the first part of the race, I think even if Crowley hadn't made that error through the pit stop, he was probably favourite because of the fuel saving he'd done in the first part of the race. But Diaz is not interested in doing any of that.
And I gotta say, and this is honest, Diaz going for those moves, I wouldn't necessarily blame everybody that he's put that move on to be a little bit upset with it. That is really gutsy. It's a low percentage move, but he wants to try and win this race. It was a somewhat disappointing run for him, frankly, in the 2025 Radical Americas Championship. Started that season off with some good results, including a win in one of the first 3 races of the championship. I believe it was at Road Atlanta where he captured the W, but after that, things kind of stalled out for the driver of the 108. He did put in some good results come time for the very end of the season, but throughout most of it, he was kind of stuck in a rut, not really able to jump in front of the likes of Aiden Young and Ryan Oda, who are contending for that championship. Now, however, I think he wants to try and stake claim on it. Certainly going for the moves that he has thus far in this race proves that he has got some vigor behind the wheel of that 108 machine.
Here comes Young in response. He does want to lead, but as I say, he doesn't want to go side by side through the bus stop chicane, and so this is the best way to go and do that. On the back straight, he goes straight through, but I don't think that's going to be the end of this, is it? Diaz is going to try and come straight back through on him, I'd imagine. The very next lap, Christoph Lipp will be lapping this up because he's just allowed to save fuel behind them.
So the game of leapfrog now going on between these competitors. I talked about this right towards the end of the AM race in terms of the rat pack between Aiden Young, Ryan Odo, and your race winner earlier on of Jared Dunkovich. Those drivers were I wouldn't necessarily say scheming, because that makes it seem like they're trying to rob a bank or something like that, but they were kind of working together to think, okay, how do we tackle these races? What do we do for the strategy? What do we do for this? What do we do for that? I don't know if Ubaldo Diaz was in on those discussions or not. I've talked about it being the war of worlds thus far between the Americas racers and the European competitors. I wonder if Ubaldo Diaz and Aiden Young are kind of either they know exactly what the deal is and they're trying to work together as pseudo teammates to get through this race and try and secure a World Finals victory for the Americas contingent, or whether or not there's some sort of unspoken bond between those racers to say, okay, we're going to do a little bit of leapfrogging right now. We know what we need to do, and they are trying to do it.
Christopher Travain into the pit lane as well, staying right through that yellow line there and forcing Franz Sikorsky to just go a little bit wide by the looks of things. May not have been him, in fact, but there seems to be a bit of lap traffic involved in this group as well, actually. Pleasing that only Andre Castro has retired from this race so far. Gonzaga, Vieira and Zuccarelli are all back, even though they've had very, very long repairs. Some of the others who drove back had very short stops first time round, but they were very early as well. Here comes Diaz in towards the bus stop. Young again wants to keep this lead, but he's almost forced into lifting off there towards the end of the back straight. It now makes the games, I think, through these pit stops even more interesting. But I think Young might well go short here. Let's try and distance Diaz as much as possible. But I think Diaz might well try and do the same. And I think if Young ends up with Diaz in the second part of the race, he's going to be very frustrated.
And now we think back to how the Americas Championship went this past season. Of course, Aiden Young was able to get the W in that season crown. However, a lot of the times when he won those races or got some fantastic results after some drama a little bit earlier on, he was able to do it through strategy. And not through like, oh yeah, I'm going to pull something that nobody else would ever think about doing. No, he would run the race and somehow get fuel numbers that nobody else could believe. I wonder if maybe come time for them heading down to the bus stop in about 45-ish seconds time, if we could maybe ride on board and listen in to hear how Aiden Young is kind of cutting this race. Is he maybe doing a little bit of lifting, trying to do some fuel saving? What is the strategy call for many of these racers? We saw in that AM race how important and consequential those pit stops were. This pro race going to be the exact same.
So through turn one again for Diaz. He just hasn't got the gap required to keep Aiden Young behind him, who's almost too close actually coming over the top of the hill here. You can see him running a little bit wide there through two so that he can get the run then afterwards. And he'll be straight back through here. Christoph Lipp again will just start to lift off as Sebastian Lipp starting to lose the front of these guys. So, you know, while they are exchanging places, these two, they're clearly not going slowly, because I think Sebastian Lipp is at maximum speed at the moment and he's seemingly struggling to stay with these front three. Christoph Lipp's not having any problem.
Yeah, I think Christoph and Sebastian, the other two calm and collected Germans running right in tow, they're just looking at the battling going on and thinking, Why are you doing that? They're slotted in third and fourth in that train of cars, getting the most amount of draft, not really pushing the issue too much. They're probably getting a heck of a lot of fuel saving done as well. So too in the case of Ryan Odo, running right behind Alfredo Malo, who we saw had that very rough start at the top of this race. Now the starts are super critical to nail down, of course, here at the Glen with that run hang down into turn at number 1, the Hockenheim ring. It will be equally important, but it is tough to nail down the starts in these SR10s, and he did not get off to a good one in the slightest, down 2 spots still. He has been able to make up some time, but it's still not ideal for Malo, and I think Ryan Odo is just utilizing Malo as a little bit of a tow car. Here comes Malo actually making that decision to come down pit lane.
Well, that won't be pleasing for Odo, because he did have to slow down a little bit there to let Alfredo Malo into the pit lane, not running straight into the back of him there. But that's why we have the rule. We have to stay to the right-hand side, so that it's very, very clear between the two drivers what's going on. But look at the gap now for Odo. He's 5 seconds off the lead. That gap was getting towards 3 as they were doing good work trying to close in on these 4 who are out front. Here goes Roberto Diaz again. We're not yet even a quarter of an hour into this race, but they've changed leads more times than I can remember. Down the inside he goes again, Diaz. Through he goes again for Roberto Diaz. Aiden Young forced to respond again later. Just 6 minutes until the likely first stops of the race for these guys.
Yeah, and you can usually tell when these racers are eyeballing a run down in pit lane when they start to turn up the wick and really get aggressive. We're seeing that all throughout this field. These racers going for some gutsier and gutsier moves lap after lap. I wonder, though, will these top 4 come into the pits in unison? Are they gonna maybe break away into a 2 and 2? So Baldo Diaz and Aiden Young will come down pit lane, followed by the 2 Lip brothers 1 lap later. How are these racers going to tackle this pit stop? That's a real question that I've got on my hands here, because I would doubt very highly that all 4 of them come down in pit lane at the exact same time. Now, in my luck, though, I probably just jinxed it, and they will all follow in due course shortly after one another, and they will play me like an absolute fiddle.
All staying out again this time. So we see half an hour to go in this race. As I said earlier, likely to see the same amount of laps as we saw in the first race of the day tonight. In the AM class, Ryan Odo comes in though. Perhaps sensible for him. Wants to stay near Alfredo Malo, who only just got in front of James Barry, who made his pit stop before. Malo's stop was 11 seconds, not the longest so far. Of those who are scheduled, Christian Turbain made the longest so far at 12.4 seconds, but the front 8 are the only ones now we're waiting for a pit stop from. Well, Aiden Young goes round the outside of Diaz. These two have got into a rhythm now. I mean, I'm just reading the body language of the car. Maybe it's not entirely correct that Aiden Young wasn't pleased with the battling earlier, but there seems to be much more of an agreement between them now.
I think now that these racers are settling into a groove in this event, they know what they gotta do. They know what is at stake as such a different task that these racers have to do. As oh my, the fact that that was only a scrape against the wall is an absolute Christmas miracle.
That was unbelievably close. Vanish Sikorsky. How he's gotten away with that, as you say, I've got no idea, but he has. So he continues. By some miracle, he goes on. That was quite something. He's just in behind Oscar Soltero, who is in the orange, just up in front of him here. Then Graham Sanders, you can just see up the road, but these guys have got quite some seconds up to the leaders and the points that really matter in this race. Aiden Young doing something very smart here. He's getting in the pit lane in front of Diaz and Lip. He'll just slow them down a little bit on the way into the pit lane. Young won't have to do that for anybody else, so that was very smart.
And that is fascinating to see Sebastian Lip follow in suit. I'm a little bit shocked about that, if I'm being honest. I thought the 2 Lip brothers were maybe going to come down pit lane at the exact same time, or maybe just doing a split strategy to see what works and what doesn't. Sebastian Lip was losing out on a lot of time as we got to the end of that stint, was falling off the back of his brother quite a lot. But let's see as they head their way down into the pit stall. Now the car is going up on the jacks for the looks of it. What's the stop going to be for Young? What's the stop going to be from Lip? Look at that, 7.5 seconds for Lip. And a penalty.
That is a very big disappointment for Sebastian Lip. How has he got a penalty? How has he got a penalty for that? Speeding on the exit of pit lane, is it?
Yeah, that had to have been it. That is, I mean, I'm shocked for one reason and one reason alone. How in the world did Sebastian Lipp, either he did the fuel saving of a lifetime, and that could have been the part of the reason why he was dropping down, to take 7.5 seconds of fuel down in pit lane. I mean, that is extreme. I think it's the shortest stop that we've seen thus far in this race in terms of scheduled stops. But Lipp getting that penalty. Aiden Young is probably aware of the fact that Sebastian Lipp has gotten a penalty. I wonder if that was maybe just a little bit of tactics to try and get into the head of Young quite a lot. Either way, though, Lipp going to have to come down to serve that black flag. That's going to take him out of contention, and now there were 3.
I do wonder whether that's an insight into what Christoph Lipp might do here, or whether the two brothers are employing completely different strategies here. I think the latter is probably more likely, as they both now run through all the pit boxes on the way down into the pit lane. Lipp was very close in behind Diaz here, and as they get into the boxes, he's almost inside of him now. He's coming towards the boxes, and they will try and hit their marks in a second. Lipp wanting a clear view into that, which wasn't easy to find behind Diaz, as he now comes to a stop as well. So 7 seconds the shortest. Will that be repeated? Yes, it was an insight into what Christoph Lipp was going to do. 7.4 seconds only, 11.5 for Diaz, so that's a bit longer than what Aiden Young did. In fact, it is by a couple of seconds. So Lipp was 2 seconds shorter than Young, who was also 2 seconds shorter than Diaz, and those are the front 3 remaining from the first round of stops, because of course Sebastian Lipp has come in to serve his drive-through penalty.
And now in this middle stint, we got to see what the pace is going to be for these competitors. You look at the gap, it's 2.3 seconds between Christoph Lipp and Aiden Young. And then you look at the gap between Aiden Young and Ubaldo Diaz. That gap is even greater. At the point now in this race where these competitors don't have to worry about the drift, maybe worrying about a little bit of fuel saving, potentially in the case of Christoph Lipp. Right now, Aiden Young and Ubaldo Diaz and Lipp as well, they have to worry about one thing, and that is just pace and pace alone. Don't have to worry about anything else. You just need to keep that car on the road, run those good lap times, and see who can come out of the pits on the second go around with that lead on track for a victory. I still think that Aiden Young has a good shot to win this race, considering he's taken the somewhat longer stop. Lipp will have to fill up more come time for that second stop, unless he has a lap car to help him out. Sebastian Lipp would be around him on the racetrack potentially, but that'd be a little bit controversial if I do say so myself. But Aiden Young, we saw throughout the Americas Championship, even when he was running all by his lonesome without a draft assistance, he was able to set in some thunderous lap times, even on tracks where the draft is so vital. So keeping on that 427 car to still impress.
And this is the chasing group led by Alfredo Marlo. So suddenly they're fighting for 4th position. And by the way, 4th place gets you 22 points to the winners 30. So it wouldn't be a disaster, but you would be hoping for Christoph Lipp to finish quite a long way down the field. And by the way, I'll just read out the second half of the season's results for you, shall I? From Christoph Lipp in the European Championship. Round 6 first place, second place, first place. That's the last 5 races of the European Championship for 2025. Banking on Christoph Lipp, I know that there was America's Championship drivers here this time, but banking on Christoph Lipp finishing, you know, a long way down, 5th place or worse, which is what these guys in this group would have to be hoping for. That feels like it's a long shot, really, at this stage in his form anyway in 2025.
Yeah, Christoph Lipp is an absolute machine in these SR10s. I mean, hey, that's part of the reason why he won both of the races in the 2024 World Finals. Very different racetracks in the form of VIR and Interlagos, but the point remains the same. You're reigning pro World Finals winner, probably going to be in that contention once again. He is in that contention with 23.5 minutes left to go. But at this point, I feel like the fate of these drivers' races is partially out of their hands and partially in their hands in a way. In terms of the pace out there on the racetrack, it's solely in their hands, but the strategy, everybody has run their own call. They've laid their own bed, and now they've got to lay in it.
We're just about halfway through this race now, so in about 5 minutes' time, we should see some of those shorter stoppers having to come into pit lane. Some of those short stoppers from earlier, I mean, they're a long way further down the field, to be fair. John Butterfield, meantime, gets himself past Heinz Braun for 12th place. So, again, good to see so many drivers persevering with this at the moment and continuing on, because it will be very easy, I think, after the opening laps of this race for any of these guys to say, well, I haven't got a chance of winning anymore. I might as well give it up. But no, they're continuing on, and Butterfur is getting some places as a result. And Sully Redden continues on as well. He was the one who spun, of course, on lap number 1 and sent George Gonzaga into the air.
Yeah, I was expecting some drama at the start of this race. I was not expecting poor George Gonzaga to get sent up onto his side. He was about a couple degrees away from fully rolling that car over. That was a wild start here in this race. We're expecting the wild racing still, as here we go. That's Sally Ryan and Franco Sanchez duking it out, and that's Sanchez jumping his way up into P15, the driver who was nearly in championship contention 1 year ago in the Americas Championship, running strongly in this race. The driver from Bolivia, I believe that is the flag in question, the number 25 machine. The Pied Piper of this train is now looking on to Race Friedrich, looking to apply some pressure to Reinen.
Yeah, it is the Bolivian flag, but somebody in YouTube cheering him on is saying, things about Peru.
Yeah, it's funny. I, for the longest time, thought he was Peruvian because that was a flag that he used last year, and now he's used the Bolivian flag. I wonder if it's down to the fact that iRacing has changed their flag system. You used to be assigned to clubs to wherever your internet connection was from. Now, however, I think you can change. So I wonder if Franco Sanchez was originally born in Bolivia and now lives in Peru. That is something we...
the other way around.
Yeah. Mayhaps, may possibly.
Thankfully, we've got the Spanish-speaking producer Ramiro to get on the case. So while we don't understand what they're saying, Ramiro does. So that's good. This is this is the battle for 15th place involving Sanchez with Sully Redden and Andreas Friedrich in behind. And Friedrich's got to be massively disappointed about this, isn't he? I mean, we saw him win here on Friday, hard-fought race, and in the end he took victory. A dramatic finish indeed it was at the end as well. Played the tactics perfectly in front of Andre Castro, and we'll see whether he gets some of those cat and mouse games again a little bit later on, but we know that it's not going to be involving Andreas Friedrich, who is currently down in 17th position.
So now these competitors getting into the final 20 minutes of this race. I think we're going to see a change of philosophy go on for these competitors. Whether or not you've gone off to a bad start and just want to try and do damage control, that's one thing these racers still have to try and angle themselves up for the best end to this race. We rode on board with Oscar Soltero as they headed their way down into turn number 8, the other heel of the boot section. Heard a little bit of lifting going on there. Gotta wonder how much fuel saving is going on throughout this field. We saw it a lot throughout the European and Americas Championships. Saw it already in the AM race to get this World Finals up and rolling, and seeing it again in the pros. Fuel saving and the strategy always vital in these pit stop races.
Thank you to Harmony in YouTube chat, by the way, for correcting me as well. It was indeed Diego Zuccarelli who clipped Gonzaga, not Sully Redden. They're in the same dark red car, in the same dark red livery, so I got them confused. But you are absolutely correct. Into the pit lane for Friedrich and Bruno Vittorino. So these final pit stops of the day are now beginning, especially for those who were caught up in incidents earlier on. For the likes of these guys, for Marlo and Odo especially, they should actually be running one of the longer runs of anybody today. But indeed, for anybody who's at the front of this field here, they should be running a lot deeper into this race. I mean, I think it was Stefan Mellis, wasn't it, in the AM class race, who pitted with only 3 laps to go. Maybe we're going to see that from somebody in about 15 minutes' time as well.
So now the other pit stops, with how dramatic the start of this race was. I think the pitch strategy is all sorts of jumbled up. Everybody trying to run something different. Everybody trying to make something work after the drama right at the very start. But the pit stops will be coming up here sooner rather than later. I'm going to ask you here, Yoon, who do you think has impressed you the most in this stint of the race? Either staying in the good lap times, making up a good gap, or just taking a chomp out of the race lead? In the case of Christoph Lipp, who's now coming down pit lane, wasn't expecting that.
Well, he's only pitted for 7 seconds, I suppose, in the first stint, so he kind of had to there. And that is a bit early, but nevertheless, that's Diego Zuccarelli, by the way. See what I mean about him looking very similar to Rotonen. He's in the box at the moment, making my excuses. Gullikson and Sanders also into the pit lane as well, but just in front of us. There goes Christoph Lipp pulling into the box. This should be a lot longer in the box this time. Should be over 10 seconds. I guess about 12 if I have to. Let's see how long this stop is going to be this time around. 12.3. There you go. So Christoph Lipp is going to be on his way out. Who's he going to be with, though? Mehmet Beradakis is very close to him. So's Katil Larson. This could be traffic, and it looks like it will be here. Larson will not be that far behind him. Mehmet Beradakis will not be that far in front. It's not the clear air that Christoph Lipp would have been hoping for.
Yeah, I'm not sure if this has worked out entirely in Christoph Lipp's favor. He was able to get the track position a bit earlier on, but things have gone slightly awry. It's not game set match, but he will certainly hope that he can lose out on as little time as possible with Mehmet Beradakis right in front. If he makes a small little mistake, he's got Katil Larson right behind him, and we've talked at length on the official side of things. Yeah, the sort of pseudo rivalry, for lack of a better term, between the IGL coding stable that Katil Larson drives for and the Inert team that Christoph Lipp is a part of. Those teams have been contending for championships for many moons in the Radicals world, so there may be a little bit of beef going on there, so I'll have to see if that battle potentially flares up between those two racers from the opposing teams.
Last time around, Hayden Young was the fastest driver out there, 1:39.0. And to go back to your point a couple of moments ago about who's been impressive in this middle part of the race so far, as short of the middle part of the race as it is these days, or in these types of races, Hayden Young perhaps has been the most impressive. Very quick indeed. John Butterfield meantime into the pit lane as Ryan Odo goes on the defensive from Alfredo Malo as well, but doesn't really need to in the end. Oscar Soltero right behind Ferenc Sikorsky as well. And Soltero will stay behind too. Soltero is weaving furiously behind Sikorsky. Please get on the racing line and focus on what's in front, because I'm never going to try and overtake you. But we need to, help each other. You can't bump draft, but you can do the reverse draft, as it were. Get close to the driver in front of you and just push them on a little bit. And Sikorsky is still a bit nervous that Soltero is going to overtake him.
And Sikorsky was very fast in the race at Monza for the World Finals qualifier just 1 week ago, but he did have a slightly different way that race went for him. He had to fight back from adversity after an early stage incident, so I think maybe that could be applying to him slightly, just thinking, I need to run it at 10/10 all the time. Maybe Ferenc Sikorsky pushing that car a little bit too much, still stuck behind that car of Tavarin right in tow. That number 8 car, don't usually see Christopher Tavarin run in the officials. I'm sure that he was a part of the European Championship, though. Very quick racer for sure, and look at him in that IGL Coatings car. Those striking green and white liveried machines to run strong in these races.
Here we go. Hayden Young into the pit lane. So Diaz will probably only be able to go on another couple of laps as well. But here we go. Hayden Young is into the pit lane now. The stop should be about 10 seconds long. If it's longer than that, Lipp will have the advantage, no matter what the speed was for Hayden Young. Let's hope he hasn't made the mistake of changing tyres. As you mentioned, he did that in the opening round of the season 10 months ago, or 9 months ago. 10.8, little bit long. And so Christoph Lipp should have the place. There he goes through the bottom of the shot. And is Young going to be in the slipstream here? He should just about be there. He's got to use some very quick opening lap speed here, Hayden Young. Just stay with Christoph Lipp, because this is the battle for the race lead.
Yeah, so Christoph Lipp needs to do everything in his power to push to extend that gap. Young, meanwhile, needs to push on some slightly colder tires. He's going to have to try and scrub them into the ground to get them up to speed and get his car back up to speed. Looks like he's got the push. He's got the anger and aggression behind the wheel of that 427 car. He's been able to keep within tow. Look at that gap, about a half a second between Lipp and Young. That is everything that Young wanted it to be, and then some. Now going to worry about how Ubaldo Diaz is going to shake out in this battle. He's about to come into the pits here soon, currently holding on to the race lead. I wonder what he may be able to do with that very long first stop. He may be able to jump in front of both of these racers.
Well, as I say, a couple of laps to wait yet for Diaz, but Young has at least done the work of staying with Christoph Lipp here in the opening lap of this run. Odo and Malo with the same pit stop times of doing exactly the same strategy, it seems, here tonight. They're in as well. Christopher Trevane and Francis Sikorsky into the pit lane too. So Oscar Soltero is another driver who, one of the few drivers now we're still waiting for. Heinz Braun and Franco Sanchez-Buckley as well. We are also waiting for as these others come to a stop. There goes Marlowe, a bit deeper into the boxes. Odo has made up a lot of places so far in this race. Easy to forget he qualified back there. As he now gets going again, and Marlowe will be behind him, but not too far behind him. They'll still be absolutely together, as are Lip and Young. I think they're going to have distanced Diaz, actually, when this is all said and done, and it's just going to be between the two of them heading on to the last lap.
So now the fight begins, and these racers try and angle themselves the best that they can for the final few laps of this race. Getting into crunch time, and these racers know that. Look at the aggression whacking the curbs as they head their way off through the chicane. Aiden Young, a fantastic driver in his own regards. We actually got warned, not necessarily warned, but told by Ryan Odo a couple of weeks ago that Aiden Young may not be able to have an interview with us after this race is said and done, because he has to go to an event for his own racing adventures himself. Good kart racers, so if there's anybody of these two that is comfortable slamming over the curbs, maybe getting a couple wheels up off the deck and probably having those inside tires a couple of feet up in the air, is probably going to be Aiden Young. Fantastic racer in the sim, great racer in karts, and I think he is still going to try and apply as much pressure as he can to Christoph Lip. These are two of the best in the Radicals world, and two of our champions, in fact, in the European and America's championships, respectively.
Indeed. It was always going to be between these two, and there were always going to be two of the ones involved. Maybe it is just going to be a head-to-head. Less than 10 minutes to go when Alberto Diaz comes in, so Soltero the latest to pit, and now this is the battle for third. But Alberto Diaz has been able to run a very, very long way here. Last lap was a 39.1. These two were in the 39.2s in Lip's case, 39.0 for Aiden Young, who's still, I think, the quickest driver in this field at the moment. Lip's pit stop able to be shorter because he did so much fuel saving in the first part of the race, I would imagine. Here comes Aiden Young, though. Is he wanting to get through on Lip in the same way that he always wanted to be in front of Diaz again? No. The games have begun. And you wonder, based on what we saw on Friday, what the cat and mouse is going to be like between the two when they get to the last lap together.
Yeah, and I think that game of cat and mouse is always one that has to be played on these draft-heavy tracks. This track may only have one big draft opportunity heading down into that bus stop, but it is strong. It is a long, flat-out blast, pretty much from the exit of one all the way through into the braking zone down to that bus stop chicane. You're running flat out in these SR10s with maybe a little bit of crack of the throttle as you head your way all through the S's if you're on very cold tires or maybe with damage. Neither of these drivers are, though, so they're going to have to play a game of chicken with the racetrack and a game of chicken with themselves. Ubaldo Diaz, meanwhile, up at the front, has finally made that call to come down pit lane. I wonder if Franco Sanchez will follow in suit, because if he doesn't, if he stays out on track for too much longer, Christoph Lip and Aiden Young may be able to catch him up on the road.
Now let's see what the gap is going to be initially here between Diaz and the rest, as he now pulls into his box. Needs this stop to be 8 seconds, really, or shorter. He'll do well to make it shorter. Oh, he has done a very nice stop there. 7.5 seconds for Diaz, and maybe he is in the game. He's going to be running around the inside of the first corner, and he's going to be in front of the two of them. Oh my goodness, Alberto Diaz has done brilliantly in the strategy here. Just 7.5 seconds in his final stop, and that's extraordinary. He's in front of Lip and Young, who are now going to be jockeying between the two of them. Young won't want to be second off for much longer. Lip pulls in front of him. Young pulls to the outside with 3 wide into the bus stop chicane for what will be the lead of the race. Young on the outside will tuck back into second. But suddenly this race gets much more complicated, because you can't stick in second anymore, not as easily anyway. You can't just stick in behind and think I'll wait and nip past at the very end. You've got to think about this with 3 drivers involved. Diaz is right in this battle.
It is so tough, the mental games that these racers have to play come time for the very end of this race. You gotta treat it like a knife fight in a sense. You gotta think on your toes, always think about when to attack, when to attack, when to attack. But these races can also be a bit strategic, both in terms of coming down pit lane and trying to position yourself well at the end. So these racers not only have to worry about getting attacked with a knife by their competitors. They also have to think a couple of steps ahead of their other drivers as well. This is going to be a showdown, and I gotta say, that three-wide battling as Diaz was trying to build the momentum on the back straightaway with Christoph Lipp and Aiden Young coming up behind him like Exocet missiles. That right there was absolute cinema. You love to see it.
Franco Sanchez-Buckley, by the way, did the longest stop of anybody first time round, nearly 18 seconds, so that's why he's still in the lead right now, and these guys are technically fighting for second as things stand. Out of turn one, and Young is very, very close. Now, does he try and get in front of Lip? Oh my word, that was close. He goes down the inside through turn three, and if there were contact between the two of them there, all three of them would have had their race ended there and then. Here comes Diaz. Meantime, he's not going to get past Young, I don't think, and indeed he'll hang back. Young goes round the outside of Lip. He takes the lead. He doesn't want to slip to third. You know, he wants to go down to third, even less than he wants to be leading this trio. So Aiden Young takes the lead, but this is all tactics at this stage in the game.
I'm sure there is one thing that all these racers are thinking, and whenever they go for a move, it's okay, where am I going to be on the last lap if this continues on? If you're in the race lead, the net race lead, in the case of Aiden Young, as Franco Sanchez has still not come down pit lane in that number 25 machine. But if you're Aiden Young holding on to the race lead, you're going to think, okay, will I get shuffled back into the race lead once some drivers overtake me come time for the very end? Will I end up losing out on some time? Everybody, I don't think anybody wants to be leading at the very start of this race. And we actually saw it in the Friday official 2100 GMT race that we broadcasted here on RaceSpot just the other day, where Andre Castro intentionally slowed up come time for the end of that race to try and let Andres Friedrich in front of him. It didn't really work out that well, as Castro ended up losing out on a podium, in fact, in that race, with some drama that befell him as he tried to retake the lead and did not make it work. Will anybody want to be in the race lead as they head their way out of one on that final lap? I don't think they want to.
Yeah, so I'd say it just adds such another dimension to this, having a third driver there. I don't think I've seen this situation from these cars around this circuit, despite a fair share of races around here in the past. Here comes Lip then. He wants to get into first of the group, and Diaz, oh, in contact! Young's going to go, wow, very nearly off the road there. Diaz there has to slow up not to hit him, and now they've got to do the work of catching back up to Christoph Lipp there, who very nearly edged Aiden Young off the circuit completely. I wonder whether he'll get into any trouble with that at all, or whether that will just be seen as a very minor bit of contact, but he was getting squeezed there with Aiden Young.
That got physical, and that could have been so much worse than it already was. That's going to add to the tension even more. We saw Huberto Diaz and Aiden Young kind of throw haymakers at each other a bit earlier on, with Diaz showing Aiden Young the cold shoulder as they had their way into the bus stop earlier. Just saw that once again, and this time with Lip giving Young the hip check. And there you can see, I'm not even sure if it was contact. I think it was just positioning Young in the worst spot. You can't be on the outside as you head your way into the bus stop chicane and really make it work in these SR10s. I think Christoph Lipp knew exactly where to put that race car to tell Aiden Young, hey, look, you got to back out of this. Go to the back of the line, buddy.
Franco Sanchez-Buckley is into the pit lane meantime. 3 laps from the finish, exactly the same strategy as what Stefan Mellis employed in the previous race. So going for the very long first stop and a very, very, very short second one, which should be about 2 or 3 seconds for him. Driver, by the way, is from Peru, but his iRacing flag is in Bolivia for whatever reason. So there we go, glad we cleared that one up. There you go, 3.5 seconds for him. So it is the battle for the lead as we expected. Christoph Lipp, Aiden Young and Huberto Diaz fighting for the win. Alfredo Malo, Ryan Odo and James Barry are fighting for 4th. Christopher Travain and Graham Sanders fight for 7th. Havok Gullickson's on his own in 9th. And Franek Sikorski is also on his own in 10th position. So plenty of battles going on out there on the circuit. But you've got to say, I think anyway, we've reduced this to 3 as far as who is going to win the World Finals here this time around. You've got to be finishing on the podium, I think, here, and it is, in my opinion, going to be one of these 3.
Yeah, with only 2 races for these competitors throughout these World Finals, you can't afford to have a bad race. I brought that up a lot during the Americas broadcast this past season for drivers contending for a championship, but you could boil that down even more. You got a fifth of the races. You got so much less racing action. In fact, in those season events, it was one 60-minute long race. Here, however, it combines for only 65 between the 2 races, so far less time out there on the track to prove yourself. So the same amount of pit stops, mind you, but the point remains the same, that you can't afford to have a bad run. So for the drivers who've run into some difficulties, I think one driver who's going to be bitterly disappointed with how things have gone for him so far today is Havard Gullikson. Entered this race as a fantastic pick to maybe walk away with it all, but it just hasn't gone his way. Got involved in some drama at the start. He's way at the back. Andre Castro as well, down in 24th, last place here in the first race. There's no coming back from that. You can't come back from a goose egg here in the World Finals.
Side by side as Young goes past Lip, and Diaz is going to as well. No, it's side by side, is it? And no, Lip gets in front. This is the penultimate lap. This is about positioning yourself for the final one. And remarkably, there's traffic in front. Diego Zuccarelli might well just help out whoever the leader is. Looks like it's going to be Aiden Young to stay in front of the other 2, because if he's got slipstream as well here, Young, then maybe he'll be able to stay in front of them all.
Now, who set themselves up the best? Because we're not going to see any sort of side-by-side racing between now and that white flag. It just can't really do it in the final sector here at the Glen. Has it been Aiden Young setting himself up the best? He will be the one punching that hole in the air. It's Christoph Lipp right in tow, maybe going to try and affect this as well. But look at that lap car. That could decide this fight as well. Oh, it's here we go. Diaz proving me wrong with a dive down into turn number 9 to try and jump into P2.
And Zuccarelli's going to get out of the way for all 3 of them, but has that given the gap here to Aiden Young that he needed to win the first race of the World Finals? The slipstream, of course, is massive on the way to the bus stop chicane, and so it could well be that Diaz can make 2 places at the very end of this race, but the white flag is waving. There's seconds to go. There's 1 lap to go in the opening race of the Radical Sim Racing Championship World Finals for pro drivers, and it's less than half a second. Lip is over a second behind Young. He's going to have to hope there's trouble here between these 2 out front. The American drivers have dominated the Europeans in race 1 here tonight. Here comes Diaz, though, in the slipstream of Young. He's not going to give this one up lightly. Into the bus stop. He's forced on the outside line. Is he going to get it through? Oh, the contact is across the grass, and he's going to come into Young. Is he? No. Young goes round the outside, and he's through. Diaz is going to stay on the road in second, and Christoph Lipp now has to get past him for second place, while Young goes out front leading.
Young is driving off into the sunset. He's going to say, thank you very much, boys. I'll take this win here at the Glen. He's driving away. Diaz has been the wedge at the end of this. Not only did he go for the move on Christoph Lipp, he may have just given Young both the scare of a lifetime and the win of a lifetime here. Diaz and Lipp nearly make contact as they head their way off through the toe down this small little flat-out blast into 8 for the final time. But Aiden Young looks like he's going to be able to prove everybody wrong, as much as it looked like he was in the worst position to start off this last lap. It looks like he's going to be in the first position at the end of this lap.
Even Lip couldn't get through into turn 9 either. So Diaz, having thrown a Hail Mary to get past Young, really is still going to end up with second as they come through the final turn. Race 1 is going to go to Aiden Young as the Americans win on American soil in both classes. Aiden Young wins race 1 in the World Finals for 2025 in front of Diaz and Christoph Lipp. The gap covering the 3 of them, less than a second and a half in the end. That is a brilliant start for Aiden Young. Qualified on pole, he wins the first race as well, so the tiebreakers are going in his favour right now too, as he's got a qualifying and a race result that can't be bettered, of course, and he will go into the Hockenheim race with the advantage ahead of the others. What a race, what a finish, and what a bit of defending that was from our eventual winner, Aiden Young.
Yeah, and I gotta say, playing spoiler at the end of all that was Ubaldo Diaz. Getting those moves done allowed Aiden Young to drive off into the sunset. Now Christoph Lipp and everybody else has a much harder road in front of them come time for the Hockenheim ring.
So it will be Young who wins indeed by just less than a second in front of Ubaldo Diaz. Christoph Lipp in third place ahead of Alfredo Malo and James Barry round out the top 5. Ryan Odo was in that group as well, finished 6th. But Graham Sanders and Christopher Travain, who were only half a tenth behind at the end, apart rather. Havik Gullikson and Franit Sikorsky round out the field. John Butterfield and Franco Sanchez-Buckley were battling as well for 11th and 12th at the line. For Andreas Fruchik, our winner on Friday, only finishes 13th here in front of Heinz Brolin and Katil Larsen. Sully Rettinen finishes 16th with Bino Vitorino, Mehmet Akis and George Gonzaga getting the last of the finishing positions that score points. Diego Zuccarelli went a lap down there very late on, as we saw. And at the very back end of the field, Lucas Vieira, Oscar Sotero, Sebastian Lipp and Andre Castro with big trouble tonight. So they're going to be out of it. Aidan Young is going to be at the front of it all here, in front of Roberto Diaz and Christoph Lipp. As I say, I think those three may well be the favourites here going into race 2, coming up a little bit later at Hockenheim. But you've got to remember, that is on home soil for Christoph Lipp. The German driver in Germany, you'd have to say maybe will probably edge it in terms of speed compared to the two from the Americas region, because of that home field advantage that Aidan Young will have likely just been experiencing there.
Yeah, and that's a fantastic point that you bring up there. We flash our minds back a couple of weeks ago to the race at the Hockenheim Ring. It was only in week number 8 here in season 4 of 2025, so just 2 weeks ago where the official series ran there. And Sebastian Lipp, Christoph's brother, was actually the winner there, funnily enough. So I wonder whether or not we're going to see Christoph really shine in this race. He's got hope for 2 things, not only to be downright perfect in the second pro race coming up a little bit later on today, he's got hope for a little bit of drama to befall Aidan Young. And considering that track proved to be a bit of a challenging one a couple of weeks ago in the officials, we could very easily see some tension boil over, and the tension is certainly there considering the way this race finished.
Unfortunately, it doesn't look like any of the drivers will join us here for an interview, sadly, at the end of the first of our pro races here tonight, because we'll give you an update on their points when they come through, and indeed when they come back for the second race coming up at the Hockenheim Ring next. But how different do you think these second races are going to be? Because I can't help but think these second races, which are just 20 minutes, no pit stops required, so it feels like, to me, an official series race, doesn't it? And everyone's going to have a lot of experience with that, of course, and Hockenheim itself was only a few weeks ago.
And, you know, as much as I said a little bit earlier on in this broadcast how the two tracks are one and the same, there's a lot of quirks and features that separate the two. Watkins Glen, old school American road course, used to host Formula One way back in the 60s and 70s, but hasn't hosted F1 in many, many moons. The Hockenheim Ring, even though it isn't a part of the Formula One calendar, it is still built to F1 specifications. There's a lot more runoff area to work with around this racetrack, so the mistakes are not punished nearly as severely as they are at Watkins Glen, so these racers won't have to worry about feeling a fight or flight response, for lack of a better term, in this race coming up. They'll be able to let their hair down a little bit, relax, and maybe push the limits a little bit more, either in the race or in the qualifying session that we're currently in. We saw how much qualifying affected the race at the Glen, and even though this track is a whole different kettle of fish, it can still very much so decide who's going to come out of this race with the crown and who's going to come out of it looking ahead to 2026 to see if they can one-up it.
Now, in the first race for the AM class, just to remind you, Jack Dunkovic took the race victory in front of Eric Benson. Jose Gonzalez was on the podium. Pablo Serrano finished 4th, Luke Crowley in 5th, and so on. Have we got to call Jack Dunkovic still the favourite here? I get the feeling that he would have been more comfortable at Watkins Glen than at Hockenheim, but because he has that big advantage, having qualified on pole and taken the win through the first race here tonight.
Yeah, you'd think that he's maybe going to be on the back foot somewhat, but one thing that Jared Dunkovic does have in his back pocket compared to some of the other Americas racers, specifically, certainly the Americas racers in this World Finals event, and especially in the AM category, he runs in a lot of the officials. Ryan Odo occasionally shows up, but Jared Dunkovic is usually there week in and week out, running in the top split 2100 GMT broadcasted races here on RaceSpotTV. So I think that could potentially benefit him. Having some experience running on that track could be huge. However, the Hockenheim Ring may be more in the European stable. I think we'll have to see how the drivers do in terms of this qualifying session. Then we can kind of test the waters to see whether or not he's still the favorite, or whether or not Luke Crowley, after that bitter disappointment in the first race, could maybe come back from the brink.
It would have to be a big turnaround, I think, for Crowley, unfortunately. He still could have gotten second, even despite his pit lane mistake, but the crash through the bus stop is really what's undone it here for him. And so it's going to have to be a big performance here. But so far, Dunkovic only 7th, very early on in the session, of course, and Crowley does start better than Dunkovic, I think it's fair to say, in these qualifying sessions, at least based on what we saw at Watkins Glen. Crowley didn't improve after lap number 1. Dunkovic improved, and some of the others as well, pretty much every time. Jose Gonzalez now comes out the final corner to start another lap, and indeed finish this one, which seems to be going okay. 34.9, that'll be a second off pole, should be 7th at the end of lap number 1 for Gonzalez. So Crowley at the front so far, with Pablo Serrano in second. Serrano was in 4th place. Both of those two needing big performances here.
And I feel for Luke Crowley in this race. It's not going to be a matter of trying to grab the World Finals win, because he's going to have to hope for some things that are entirely out of his control to go his way. So this is probably just going to be a race for all that glory. Go and try and get that W. He doesn't really have anything to lose at the present moment, entering this race 10 back from Jared Dunkovic. I think the 4 drivers that I'm most certainly keeping my eyes on include, of course, Luke Crowley, of course, your race 1 winner of Jared Dunkovic, and your current provisional pole sitter of Eric Benson, along with your P3 finisher in that race of Jose Gonzalez. Benson, a driver I outlined right at the start of this show at Watkins Glen earlier, as maybe being one to keep our eyes on, currently holding on to the pole, albeit by not a lot.
No, it's not a big gap at all. Dunkovic moves up to 5th as well. It's a bit more like it from him. As I mentioned before, it's just a 20-minute race, this one, to decide the destination of the world champion. As Joel Jacqueline comes into the hairpin down here. It is he who, excuse me, who finished in the first race down in 12th place in the end. And obviously has a lot of work to do, just looking to recover a decent finish, I suppose, from the World Finals this season. Jose Gonzalez moves up into 6th meantime. So it's very close again. I get the feeling these guys are properly well practiced for this, because yeah, it's a very close opening qualifying session earlier, and we're seeing the same again now as well.
Yeah, whether it be the teams or the drivers themselves participating in practice, they've been setting in the laps and trying to get the most amount of pace out of each other. You know, actually, before we got this broadcast up and rolling, when I was joining in the session for that AM race to kick the day off, I was actually looking through the sessions. I saw 2 separate practice sessions, one for the IGL Coating Stable, and another for some of the inert drivers. Of course, those teams contending for the pro class championship here in the World Finals. So that's part of the reason why they're putting a bit more practice in. But even these AM racers trying to set in some good lap times to get the most out of this race that they possibly can. And that's part of the reason why qualifying is so obscenely close, with now the top 4 covered by 0.071 of a second, with Dunkovic and Crowley tying.
Wow. They will be separated by the tens of thousandths of a second there. Unseen to us, but that will be separated properly. That's an unbelievably close session at the moment. It kind of goes to what you were saying earlier on when we were previewing both of these tracks, that actually they're both going to be draft-fests a little bit, but actually I think this one could be even more so, because the corner at the end of the long draft here is a big hairpin, whereas it was a dangerous bus stop chicane at Watkins Glen. So this could be even more, you know, to a bigger degree, what we saw in that previous race.
Yeah, that's a fantastic point that you bring up there, Ewan. The hairpin at the end of the straightaway, that is probably the premier overtaking opportunity on this lap. As much as the same was true with the bus stop at the Glen, that was tough to try and get a move done. In all sorts of race cars, frankly, you could be running around that track in a tiny little Formula V, and it would be tricky to try and get a move done through there, just because you're on the limit of control all the time. Here in these SR10s, though, that hairpin is super, super vital. And look at it on lap 1 to maybe be a source of trouble. In the same case that the bus stop was at the Glen earlier, bringing some drama, it is going to be the case here again.
Pablo Serrano goes to the top, and that will be the end of his session. It's the end for Benson and Crowley as well. Jarrett Dunkovic and Robert Walker are still out there. Dunkovic is not far from the end of his, and Walker isn't indeed out there any longer. Dunkovic goes over the line to third, so he's back in front of Crowley, and he's right behind Benson, but Pablo Serrano has taken pole here for this second race of the day. I would say Jose Gonzalez has still got a lap to go, but I think he's struggled tonight compared to how he's been this season. He has won the regular season, of course, in the Americas side of the Radical Sim Racing Championship, the AM class of the Americas Championship. He comes up towards the line now. Is it going to be a late surprise? It won't be. It won't be. An improvement indeed from Gonzalez. And I think that will be it. Corey Buck maybe will be the last driver to come across the line. Maybe Mellis will have time as well. But Serrano takes pole, it looks like. But with Dunkovic in third, if it ends how it starts here, then Dunkovic would be doing enough as things stand to hold on by 2 points.
And now we bring up that points discussion as we've talked about throughout this. 30 points for a race win here in these World Finals. 26 for second, 24 for third, 22 for fourth, and then 20, 18, 16, 14, 12, 10. And then from P10 all the way back down to B19, you go one down from there. So the points are going to have to be brought up. These racers are going to have to consider that. Once again, I talked about the strategy and how usually in real life you'd have your team working out the strategy for you. In the sim, you got to do it for your own regard. In here as well, you gotta run the numbers and figure out what position you have to be in come time for the very end. Adds another element of surprise and fear for these racers.
Let's see the starting grid then, ready for race 2. Serrano takes pole in front of Eric Benson, who's probably got the best chance of overtaking Jarrett Dunkovic in the standings because of where the American starts from. Third place alongside Luke Crowley, who he raced with so hard in race number 1. Robert Walker and James Franzik are on then row 3, just in behind them. And these guys have got little chance of winning the World Finals, unfortunately. Benito Gonzalez and Jose Antonio Gonzalez are then 7th and 8th. Menno de Graaf and Gabriel Berger round out the top 10, with Corby Buck and Joel Jacklin then on row 6. And the final 2 rows consist of Robert Neville, Stefan Mellis and Ole Gunnar Svensrud. Unfortunately, we are missing a driver from the second race. It looks like J.R. Gregory is not joining us for race 2. Not joining us on RaceSpot either, sadly. So there we go. 30 degrees Celsius on the racetrack again. It's very similar to what we just saw in the Pro Class race 1. 86 degrees Fahrenheit. But Dunkovic here, stay out of trouble, stay third, and he'll win the World Finals as long as Benson doesn't win. But it's going to be a nervy 20 minutes for him.
It's going to be terrifying. Even though he has that top spot, it's going to be a nervous end to these World Finals, which is going to add to the jubilation he may feel later on if he can get the World Finals win. So much left at stakes for these competitors. A lot of tension building as we line up on the grid, waiting for a few more moments to get this race up and rolling for the final time for these AM competitors in 2025.
Indeed it is. The very final time they will race this season in the AM class. Just 2 races to go of the 2025 season overall, indeed, as well, as we have a Pro Championship to settle after this. 20 minutes at the Hockenheim Ring to decide the AM class champion in the Radical Sim Racing Championship World Finals for 2025. We're underway, and it's a good start from Benson on the inside of the front row. Serrano has to run around the outside through turn number 1, and Dunkovic is side by side with Crowley. And he's not able to get past Crowley. Backs away. Knows that he can't afford an accident here early on, Dunkovic. He slides back to the inside. He's not alongside Crowley, though. He's going to have to go for this at the hairpin. Just in behind him. Robert Walker will get the double toe. And he's having to half defend from him, too. Dunkovic to the inside line on Luke Crowley here. On the inside line into the hairpin. Here he goes. Crowley stuck up on the outside. Dunkovic still there. Crowley still there. They're still side by side for third.
Oh, as that's a spinner farther in the back end, spun off the track in dramatic fashion. Stefan Mellis as they bang wheels, side-to-side contact between Dunkovic and Crowley as they head their way into the Mercedes-Benz Arena for the very first time. Dunkovic knew that he had to get off to a clean start, not just a quick start, a clean start here at the Hockenheim Ring. He's been able to do it. It nearly ended in tears, though.
It's very nearly did. Here is the incident between Mellis and whoever it was. I didn't actually see who spun him round, whether he did it on his own On the outside is Oliver
Stenstrud,
who he doesn't give any space to there, Stefan Mellis, I've got to say. Unfortunately, he's the one who spins around, but I think he is at fault slightly for that one.
Yeah, I think unfortunately they're kind of spinning off the front. It's tough. It's close quarter stuff as they head their way out of the hairpin, as much as it's a heck of a lot less unnerving than the other part of the racetrack that was the bus stop at Watkins Glen earlier on. Still pretty tricky. The track kind of bottlenecks as you head your way out of there, so it can be a little bit tricky to go side by side. He was not alone in that first lap drama as Benito Gonzalez has run into some difficulties. That is a bitter way for his race to go. Was running strong earlier, but things not going to go his way as he's completely out of it.
So, as I mentioned, Benson finished second in race 1, so he's got to win here, really. Down the inside, it goes Crowley, who's very late. Oh, and he goes off completely. He very nearly hits the two in front. Benson had to turn out of that. He saw it coming, and Crowley just let off the brakes there, and he made sure he didn't career into the two in front, but Benson saw it coming, and so he slowed down, and Jared Dunkovic now is very close in behind him here. If Dunkovic can even go side by side with him and get Serrano away, then he'll be away, and Dunkovic gets in front of Benson. Suddenly, Jared Dunkovic is in massively a championship winning position here in the World Finals for 2025, and it's because of this. Luke Crowley trying to go down the inside of him, missing his braking point completely, and he made absolutely sure he didn't hit the other two, who did well to avoid in their own right, but it allowed Dunkovic up to second, and Crowley completely out of the game.
Yeah, fantastic sportsmanship there from Luke Crowley to try and avoid making contact with anybody, even on the rejoin as well. You can see him stop on the side of the racetrack to let some drivers go by, but any hopes that Luke Crowley had of a 2025 World Finals crown have pretty much been entirely dashed. Now, what a heartbreaking way for things to go for the driver of the number 18 car. It was a bitter end to the race at Watkins Glen. It's a bitter start here at the Hockenheim Ring.
Dunkovic only needs to finish in second place, and then it doesn't matter where anybody else finishes. He will win the title. With Serrano winning, by the way, he only needs to finish in fourth place or better, so it's looking very good at the moment. Jose Gonzalez through on the inside line, past the alternate layout. Benson slowing down a lot at the moment, down to fifth, and he is multiple seconds behind Jared Dunkovic now, who's actually just made a mistake into the hairpin, but it doesn't actually matter. He is really in a good position now. He just has to avoid making any major mistakes. Even that small mistake there won't really matter.
Yeah, I wonder if there's some damage on that car of Eric Benson. That number 8 car is really dropping down in the pace department. If he continues to drop down, we can cut what we thought was going to be a 4-car battle for that AM class win here in the 2025 Radical Sim Racing World Finals. We could probably cut that down to 2. Just Jared Dunkovic and Jose Gonzalez, the two America's competitors, look like they're in the spot. They battled for the championship throughout the 2025 Radical America's Sim Racing Championship themselves, and now it looks like they're going to be the ones contending out for the World Finals crown.
Benito Gonzalez, unfortunately, is already out of the race tonight for some reason. And that came on lap number 1 earlier on, by the way, for the Mexicans. So a sad end to his campaign this season. Finished race number 1, Gonzalez, all the way down the field in 14th to 15th position. It was a long way down, and he will again here, sadly, tonight. So that's the end of his road this season. As Robert Walker continues to try and keep Jose Gonzalez behind him, who seems a little bit quicker actually in the race than what he did in qualifying. But I do wonder how disappointed the America's champion will be with his performances tonight, because he was leading the America's Championship all the way through, and while it was only 18 points in the end he had over Jared Dunkovic, he's been rather outclassed tonight by the driver he beat over the course of 10 rounds this year.
You know, obviously, I am not Jose Gonzalez. I am not one of the drivers in this championship. I don't think he should be hanging his head low at all. He's still got a shot to do well in this race, as he's feeling some pressure on the outside from Eric Benson, as we take a look at a Hornet's Nest involving Benito Gonzalez at the start of this race. What may have gone down with him, it's big contact as they had their way down into the Mercedes-Benz Arena. I believe, unless I'm mistaken, that was contact with himself and Menno de Graaf.
Maybe. Gonzalez decided that was enough, and he is out of the day. Benson here back to 5th position, so he's at the moment fighting for 2nd in this championship with Pablo Serrano, who currently have 52 points to his name. Benson would have a lot less than that, and he needs to get up to second if he's going to even rescue second position in the championship right now. Of course, there are prizes for first and second in the World Finals tonight to go along with the prizes already dished out for the regular season here this time around. But Benson is, already in a bit of danger here of even dropping out of that. And you see, he was in such a good position before. I mean, at the time of Crowley's incident, he was side by side for the race lead. Now he's nearly 5 seconds back in 5th.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on with that number 8 car. I think I'm going to do my own little bit of investigative journalism to see exactly what is going on, how the pace has been looking for him, because it has not been a good run as of late.
Walker. Robert Walker spins. He's tried to get on the power coming out of the hairpin. Oh, and he only just got out in front of Menno de Graaf and Robert Neville there. As he spun in front of them, he only just got out of the way. That was pretty close, but Robert Walker is now down to 9th. Now, was it indeed on the power? I don't think there was any contact from Gonzalez. Didn't see any. But let's see. No, well, he's already sliding on the way in fairness, through the middle of the corner. It's a slow speed turn. And somewhat surprising spin there for Gonzalez as we go back to Pablo Serrano. Not even halfway through this race, he's continuing to soak up the pressure from Dunkovic.
Yes, we continue to see this battle flare up. I do want to wrap up a small little bow around the storyline talking about Eric Benson and some of the struggles that he has had as we are seeing that replay to see the drama heading off through the hairpin. Benson actually had a pretty severe lockup. He's had a string of invalidated lap times for incident points and all that stuff. Do have to keep an eye on that. 15x is a limit for these racers. It ends in tears. That could very well ruin his chances of running well in this event here today.
Yeah, well, absolutely. So Serrano does still lead at the head of this field in front of Jarek Dunkovic, with just less than 12 minutes to go here tonight. Dunkovic should be happy to just sit behind at the moment, I would imagine, and stay where he is in the second position. And indeed he does again. Benson, meantime, makes up 2 places now in 2 laps. Admittedly, one of them was through a spin from Walker, but he's made a proper overtake this time on Gonzalez. James Franznik wants to follow through as well, up into 4th place. And he's on the outside, but Gonzalez won't let him have that. And Gabriel Berger's in here as well, fighting for a little bit of pride here, really. I don't think this is really a battle for points at all, but it's worth fighting over anyway.
Yeah, at this point for some racers, it is a matter of bragging rights that they're battling for. With only 10 minutes left to go in this event, these racers seeing that checkered flag near their view. Now they got to worry about where they're going to be at the end of this race. Are you going to be in a spot to just get a good result for those drivers just trying to battle for all that glory? If you walk away from this race with the top 5, it'll look a lot better than saying, oh yeah, I finished 6th. I think Gabriel Berger is thinking that at the present moment as he may try to apply the pressure to James Franznik. Saw those two battling a little bit earlier on in race number 1 at the Glen, so let's see what they can do now in race number 2.
Still going to be a good fight, even if it isn't for anything major in this championship. Benson should be sufficiently far away now, and he needs to get to second, by the way, if he wants to even rescue second in the championship, with Pablo Serrano currently winning this race. Here comes Franznik on board with him. Not close enough on Jose Gonzalez in towards the hairpin this time. They all break late and he'll get round the turn. Oh, don't think there was contact, but he got on the power there very viciously, did Franznik, and Gabriel Berger now will get a big run on him on the way towards turn 8 as a result. Here he goes, doesn't have a look this time. That was a big slide, but well saved that time from Franznik.
Yeah, that was well held from Franznik as he goosed the throttle a little bit too much heading out of the hairpin. I think there are a couple of things that kept that car from fully spinning out. Both feet down on the brake and the clutch pedal at the same time, 2 feet in it, one hand over the other counter steering the opposite direction and probably his eyes closed, hoping that he won't end up getting hit. It worked out well for him, still holding on to P5, as I think there has been some drama involving Joel Jacklin. He's dropped down to P12 as of late as we look at this battle involving Robert Neville and Menno de Graaf. Menno de Graaf still with that damage as a result of that contact on himself and Benito Gonzalez right towards the start of this race, and they may feel some pressure here soon from the driver right in tow of Colby Buck. He hasn't really made too much of a statement here in this race, but is running strongly in 9th.
Yep. Just in behind this group of Netherland de Graaf. 2 America's region drivers and 1 European. And de Graaf stuck in the middle. And Copybook should get the run here. That was a little bit wide from de Graaf through turn 2 itself. And here goes Copybook now. Despite the lack of slipstream from Robert Neville, whose slipstream he could do with actually, comes towards the final car. And here's Dunkovic. Well, is he giving this a go on Serrano, who's now flashing his lights at him, or not? He'll like to win both races in one, Dunkovic, but I think he'd like more to keep Benson distant, surely, and win the finals overall.
Yes, I think what Dunkovic is maybe going to try and do is passively try and take the lead. He's not going to fully throw everything that he's got at it, but I think he's going to at least experiment a little bit to see if he can make it work.
That's the spin for Walker earlier on. And this is Joel Jacklin, who's currently running 12th now, and was running in the top 10. This is why he's running 12th only. Crowley and Walker getting past him. Not good as Sventrud through the final corner, or the final sector, way off through the Mobil 1 curve into a very sizable gravel trap that some of which he's brought back onto the circuit there as he rejoins. Now then, trying to board here with Dunkovic and see what's going on here. I mean, for Serrano, to be fair, he might either say, well, runner-up is what the best I'm going to get, I'll take that, or he'll try and slow Dunkovic down and say, I want it all, by getting Benson into the fray, and also Gonzalez, Franzik, and Berger as well, because Serrano needs Dunkovic to lose a couple of places from here. Dunkovic isn't going to play those games. There's contact between the two. Dunkovic is treading a fine line and he looks up. Now, is there any damage on that car? Serrano spins. Oh, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Jared Dunkovic is going to lead this race and surely go on to win from here as Serrano spins on the inside.
Oh, and the both of them rattled their own cages as they headed their way down into the hairpin. The contact caused Dunkovic to lock up big time and just dive off into the turn. Very lucky to keep it on the road, but Serrano, seeing that going around him, he was like, oh yes, I've got the opportunity, but he goosed up the throttle a little bit too much, and in similar shades to what we saw happen with Franzik a little bit earlier on, loops it around, he's in trouble, he's now down in 6th. Serrano, with how they were running at the start of this lap, was on track to finish only 4 points behind Jared Dunkovic and maybe finish P2 in this World Finals event, but because of that, it's going to end in tears. There was a contact, Dunkovic goes dive, and there we go. That's the spin around that's going to be heard around the world for Serrano.
He drops to 6th, and all chances of finishing runner-up as well have gone away, but Dunkovic is losing time. Now, it's not 5 seconds anymore. Has that come down because of the incident, or is that continuing to come down with Jared Dunkovic damaged here? There was fairly sizable contact. Now, let's just see the gap, monitor the gap. 3.4 seconds it is as it comes onto the straight here. It's going to creep up to 3.5, but is it going to go the other way because of straight line speed deficiencies here? It is. So Benson hasn't got any slipstream, but he is quicker in a straight line than Dunkovic, who I suspect may have damage.
Yeah, I'm looking around that race car. I'm on my second monitor at the moment, so I'm trying to see whether or not there is damage on that car of Jared Dunkovic. Looks like there's a little bit of scraping right behind the front left wheel on the side pod of that car. That looks like where the damage is, but that is not major damage at all. So I wonder if there's something else going on, whether or not Jared Dunkovic is saying, you know what, we've got less than 5 minutes left to go in this race. I don't want to push myself off the circuit into any sort of spin. I'm just going to try and bring it home. Doesn't look like there's any major damage on that number 9 car of Dunkovic to cause him to lose out on some pace. I think he's just trying to take it easy and bring it home.
Yeah, maybe you're right. The gap hasn't come down that much this time around. Obviously, the last lap is not representative because of the fight that he was having, but we'll see what the lap time actually is here through this this time round here. Serrano, by the way, passed Gabriel Berger for 5th place. What the... is second, he still wins the World Finals, so a lot has to change here in the last 3 laps for him to lose it from here.
Yeah, so what would have to go down, just to throw out a hypothetical, if Dunkovic, let's say he lost down the lead, Benson was able to jump in front of it, Jose Gonzalez would have to overtake Dunkovic himself in order to put ourselves in a situation where Dunkovic loses out on this World Finals win. But I think we're more likely to see a three-car battle like the one we've got on screen right now between Benson, Gonzalez, and Franznik than we would see Dunkovic lose out on that race lead. It's kind of plateaued around that 3.3 second range. I don't think Jared Dunkovic, I think he'd be crazy to try and push it at this point.
By the way, this is the fight for the runner-up spot in the World Finals, because Benson's currently got it, but if Gonzalez were to get through and Benson drops to 4th or worse, then Gonzalez would finish 2nd here tonight. Finished 3rd in the first race, currently 3rd in this one as well. The top 3 are actually the same as to what they were in race 1, but Benson does have to seem to have a little bit more speed, and he's just distancing Gonzalez and Franznik a little bit now with this amount of time left in the race. So and then you've got Gabriel Berger and Pablo Serrano behind as well. So it looks like the front 2 are settled, but we said that before, and Serrano and Dunkovic battled away somewhat inexplicably. 2.5 minutes to go for this man to bring it home from here with a double win in the World Finals as well.
Yeah, so Jared Dunkovic going to be the 2nd driver in a row if things finish the way they are at the moment. Don't want to count our chickens before they hatch, but Dunkovic will become the 2nd racer in as many years here in the Radical World Finals to score both race wins in both races in the AM category, on track for a championship win, although it was not a straightforward path for him to get there, unlike Tom Euler's triumph 1 year ago. Saw a spin there, heading off through the final turn, and a battle maybe flaring up between Pablo Serrano and Gabriel Berger. That's for the final spot inside the top 5. Serrano looks like he's been able to get that move done to jump his way up in a 5th, but this battle is still far from over, as we're about a lap and a half away from the very end of this race.
Oh dear, Berger there on the very tight line. I thought he would just wait for the last lap, but no, down the inside he goes into the left-hander, and around the outside for the second part isn't going to work. So Pablo Serrano stays in front of Gabriel Berger, but for how long? Into Mobile 1 curve he's forced on the outside here too. No, he can't go all the way around there. So, yeah, wow, this is all happening between these two at the moment, as we see the final lap of AM Class Racing in the Radical Sim Racing Championship for 2025. It's starting off with a bang. Serrano still on the inside of Berger. What a fight through the final sector. Some say it's too narrow to actually battle like this, but these two proving that all wrong coming on to the last lap of the season.
Yeah, the tension rising all throughout this field. Drivers trying to give us a heck of a battle as they head their way side by side to turn number 1. That could have ended in tears if Gabriel Berger didn't back out of it. Thankfully, though, he did. He's got to try and save up that run for the back straightaway. But as we look at this battle for the final spot inside the top 5 and the battle for the rest of the spots in the top 5, looks to be game, set, match between Benson, Gonzalez, and Franznik. Talk about a brilliant performance from Dunkovic. He had to show up today, and show up he has.
Absolutely. Meantime, Berger and Serrano continue. And down the inside goes Serrano. Oh, and he blocks him off. Look at that. He misses the apex intentionally, I think. Or maybe he broke too late, and Berger was forced to the outside anyway. But Serrano fends off Berger, and he should finish in the top 5 again. Crowley, the only driver from race 1 in the top 5, not to be here as well. That time it's a spin. Gabriel Berger's difficult evening comes to an end, and he very nearly slides straight in front of Colby Book. Manu de Graaf and Robert Neville will take the places happily as well. But out front, Jared Dunkovic has led quite a few laps in this race. He won the opener at Watkins Glen, meaning that only a top 2 would be fine for him here tonight to seal the deal. And he's done more than that. He's done the double. And he is the Radical Sim Racing World Champion for the AM class this season. Jared Dunkovic is your 2025 champion.
And what a way to do it as well. After starting from the pole and having the race more or less fall into his lap with lack of a better term, as the race went on at Watkins Glen. He had to fight for it here at the Hockenheim Ring, and fight for it he did. I think Luke Crowley and Gabriel Berger are involved in a battle right towards the very end, but we're going to be treated to some nice donuts in the runoff area of turn number 2, and some well-earned donuts as well. Dunkovich came oh so close to winning the championship in the AM class in the America's Championship here in 2025, but I don't think he's worried about that too much. Gonna make up for it with a win in the World Finals here.
Absolutely. It is disappointing to miss out over 10 rounds, but this is the main prize at the end of the season. And Jarek Dunkovich is the world champion in the AM class. He finishes ahead of Benson and Gonzalez. The top 3 in this race being exactly the same as the top 3 in the first race. So they will finish 1, 2 and 3, therefore, in the standings as well. Gonzalez looks pretty pleased with that himself. Here are the final race results then at the end of that, before we speak to Jarek very quickly before the Pro Class final. It's Dunkovich who wins out of Benson and Gonzalez. That's the top 3 in your standings as well in the end. James Franznik has his best race of the night, finishing in 4th ahead of Pablo Serrano, who rounds out the top 5. Colby Book is next ahead of Menno de Graaf, Robert Neville, and Luke Crowley, who's the only driver to finish outside the top 5 this race, who finished inside of it in the first. 10th place in the end went to Gabriel Berger, I think. Then Robert Walker finished ahead of Joel Jacqueline, Onagon Svensford, Stefan Mellis, with Benito Gonzalez retiring on the first lap. Very apologetic to Menno de Graaf for his contact through turn 8 on the opening lap. Let's have a chat then to our world champion in the AM class, Jarek Dunkovich, here tonight. Jarek, welcome in. Congratulations on winning the World Finals AM class here tonight. Give us your initial reaction, your initial thoughts after crossing the line here in the second race.
Can't believe it, man. This is freaking awesome. To bounce back after the championship like this and dominate both races was something awesome. And then, lost the championship by 18 points, as you said earlier, but to come back and dominate both races like this, I can't be any happier and elated. Special thanks and shout out to, sorry, Ewan, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say a special shout out to the guys over at DCG and even New York City. They gave a couple little helps every now and then. My girlfriend, the guys back at home, and my parents, everyone else behind me too. This is awesome. This was freaking awesome. And thanks to you guys for hosting a broadcast.
No, it's a very fun couple of races to watch tonight and indeed throughout the season. Tell us a little bit about the roller coaster of emotions you went through, though, especially through this race, because I thought you and Pablo Serrano would just amicably run 1 and 2 for the rest of the race, but that's not what happened in the end.
Yeah, no, we had a good battle going on, and I was thinking about that, but eventually I just started noticing little mistakes and stuff, and I was like, okay, I gotta go, because if I get stuck behind and start falling back to I think it was Eric back in 3rd, and I was like, I needed to make a pass. Went down, held my line, and just Rubbins racing and stuff. But he raced me good, and I hope I can say the same or he could say the same for me. But definitely a good race, and I appreciate the hard racing. That's what's so great about this series is everybody races you hard, everybody races you clean, and it's just a good series to be part of.
Yeah, well, congratulations on winning the title here tonight in the AM class, Jarek. Thanks for coming to chat to us after both races, and go and enjoy celebrating tonight.
Oh, of course. I'm definitely going to be enjoying today and the rest of the night. But thanks again for you guys for having stellar broadcasters, and thanks for the entire series for putting this up.
Thanks very much. Jarek Dunkovich, your AM class champion in 2025 in the Radical Sim Racing World Finals tonight. Very, very pleased with his efforts. And why wouldn't he be as well here, Ron? That was a sterling effort. To win both races, very, very impressive, because he didn't actually need to in the end, as it turned out.
Yeah, and that right there, all throughout the day for Jarek Dunkovich, that was a drive with purpose. As he said in the interview just a few moments ago, he wanted to try and impress here, and impress he did. Grabbing the pole, winning both races, that is a darn good way to seal off the deal and win the World Finals in 2025. Dunkovich wanted to impress, and impress he certainly did. So well done to Dunkovich, and well done to the AM field, because that was some absolutely amazing racing throughout today. But hey, we've still got the main show coming up with those pro drivers hitting the track.
Yeah, just a quick shout out as well to Eric Benson for finishing second in the AM class here tonight as well, getting the runners-up prizes too. Let's get on to the pro class then, shall we? here at the Hockenheimring. Another 20-minute race coming your way to decide the destination of the world champion for 2025. Aiden Young won the first race. I mean, what are we going to expect from this second race? Based on what we just saw there in the AM class, this is going to be a field 33% bigger, and it's going to be quite something to watch.
Oh, it is going to be a wild race. I mean, we had a driver nearly go upside down. We had strategy that kept us on our toes all throughout. A fantastic end of race battle. If that's anything to go off of after the first 45-minute long race here in the 20-minute long sprint, we're going to have a full-on showdown. I can't even say a showdown's right. I think we're going to have a Mexican standoff, essentially, with everybody with a fully loaded gun.
It's going to be quite something. 1/3 of this session already complete, and so the first times are now coming in. James Barry currently the best of them. None of the top 3 from the previous race, though, have set a lap time just yet. There we go. Aiden Young has now, and he's gone straight to the top. And that's what he's got to do here, I think, as well. Again, get to the front part of the race. Make sure you're part of the front group when you get, into the race. And there's, going to be all sorts going on lap number 1, but make sure you're ahead of it all and in the front.
Yeah, this qualifying session has a lot of importance just to know where you're going to be in the field come time for that race a little bit later on. If you're in the midfield, especially heading down to turn number 1, you're going to be feeling the burn. If you're in the midfield heading down to the hairpin, you're going to be feeling the burn. It's just good to be either up at the very front or all the way at the back. So if anybody may decide to say, you know what, I'm not even going to bother setting a qualifying time, or in the case of Heinz Braun, maybe just setting a time very slow off the pace just to have a banker lap on the board, could work out well potentially. If there's any racetrack where I wouldn't want to be in the midfield, if there's any turn that I wouldn't want to be in the midfield, it is turn 1 at Hockenheim, because that's just such a clunky corner to try and negotiate.
Yeah, it definitely is. Ryan Odo out of the final corner now and onto the front straight. Zuccarelli moves up to 3rd in the meantime. Good qualifying from him so far. Sanders up to 2nd. Odo, though, up to nowhere. No time again from him this time round. So got to be careful of those off tracks, says Ryan Odo, unless he wants to start from the back, which I'm sure he doesn't. Alfredo Malo gets onto the pole for now, though. He finished 4th in race number 1, so he's in with an outside chance, although he wasn't involved with the leaders in the first race. If he continues to run at that sort of pace, then maybe he will get involved with the battle for the World Championship.
Yeah, and even though this 20-minute long race we have coming up is over less than half of what we had a little bit earlier on today, there's still a lot more I feel that can happen in one of these races. You remove the pit stop, sure, but the battling out there on the racetrack, you're going to have the entire field running at 10/10s, pushing it to the limit. We saw in that AM race just a few moments ago how mistakes kind of decided the fate of that race. Could very well have the same sort of situation here in this pro class showdown. I'm looking forward to it. I'm sure these racers are feeling nervous. They're feeling the burn.
It's Franit Sikorsky, as he said at the time, put on some great race pace. He did in Monza last week in the qualifiers to make it here tonight, and indeed in the first race tonight too. Now through those final couple of corners for him and up towards the line. What is this time going to be? It needs to be a lowish 33 if it's going to be pole. And it's a low 34, so going to be in the midfield, 19th. Odo finally gets a time in, and it's 2nd. Diaz finally a time in, and it's 4th, just in behind Aiden Young right now. Ryan Odo in front of them, both though, is encouraging for him. Christoph Lipp still the only one of the big 3 from the previous race with not really any representative time on the board yet. He's still nearly 7 tenths back as Aiden Young again gets to the top. He's probably got 1 more lap to go, maybe 2 if he's quick in this session. Everybody's still out there going for pole position, and it's very, very close again.
Yeah, we talked about it right as we left Watkins Glen and made the venture off here to the Hockenheimring. The fact this track was part of the official race, many of the European racers may have the slight upper hand, but Aiden Young showing the performance once again. As much as we say that Aiden Young only ran in the Americas Championship, he races pretty much everywhere on iRacing. I've seen him run in, of course, some of the special events that we broadcast here on RaceSpotTV as well. He runs in a whole different manner of cars, so I'm sure he has a whole lot of experience experience running around this racetrack. We may have seen him in some of the officials as well, just not the ones that we broadcast. So I'm sure Aiden Young has got a lot of experience, but look at Sebastian Lip jumping up to the top of the board.
There we go. Sebastian Lip finally on the board, and Christoph Lip as well. What a lap! Oh my word, 32.9. It's way quicker than anybody else from Christoph Lip there, and suddenly the goalposts have been moved. Lucas Vieira up to the end of his session. He's going to go 34.0 is going to go no quicker. Diaz goes up to 4th place. That's not bad from him. And Aiden Young is right in front of him. So the top 4, as they were running early in the previous race, are top 4 again. But Christoph Lip has blown them out the water there.
That was a 2-word lap, and those 2 words were game on. They want to fight for this win. Christoph Lip, your 2024 Radical World Finals champion. He's going to need to come back here after finishing 3rd in the other race at Watkins Glen. But thanks to our drama goes on with your current 3rd place qualifier of Young, that would get into it. And we do have those tiebreaker scenarios in case it does come down to that. I'm sure Christoph Lip doesn't want to go on count back. He wants to go out for glory, grab the pole, grab the win, and trying to return to World Finals crown. He wants to return to that throne.
If it were to finish as it currently is in qualifying right now, it would be going down to the amount of incident points between the two. So we wouldn't know as they go across the line. Christoph Lip and Aiden Young would be exactly tied on every metric, so that would be interesting. Andres Frugic goes up to the line and may improve from there a little bit. Not too much, though. In fact, doesn't. And stays in 10th. Here's Aiden Young. Needs to get closer. You'd say he needs to get on the front row, really, but he's the last hope for getting ahead of Christoph Lip here, whose session draws to a close, as it has for everybody else in the top 10. Aiden Young is going to be the last driver up towards the line here. And if not, he's going to have to race very, very well, because the 2 brothers out front there could be very, very dangerous for the rest of this field. Don't think Young is going to be improving here, to be honest, and he won't. So that is it. Christoph Lip with a big statement there. A 32.8, 3.5 tenths, nearly quicker than anybody else.
And it will be a showdown between those racers. He did everything he needed to do in qualifying, and now come time for the race. Doesn't have to worry about pit stops this time. It's just going to be a straight-up dogfight.
It will. Christoph Lip on the front alongside his brother Sebastian Lip, with Aiden Young and Obodo Diaz 2nd row. Then Alfredo Malo and Ryan Odo on row 3. It's looking very similar to the start of the race, at least, at Watkins Glen. James Barry and Lucas Vieira on row 4 in front of Oscar Sotero and Andrej Frugic. Graham Sanders and Christopher Terrain are then on row 6. Row 7 for Havik Gulliksen and George Gonzaga. Not Gulliksen's best night, unfortunately. Diego Zuccarelli and Katil Larsen round out row 8, with Ferenc Sikorski and Heinz Brunt on row 9. Running up the top 20, Mehmet Beredakis and John Butterfoot, who's surprisingly far down there. Sully Rettinen 2 with Franco Sanchez Buckley alongside. Bruno Vitorino and Pablo Serrano round out the field. Well, where is this going to go then? Christoph Lip on the pole, Aiden Young in 3rd. Who's your money on here? I mean, it is a real bit of guesswork at the moment.
Oh, that you're putting me on the spot here, Ewan. I am going to put my money on Sebastian Lip. I'm not going to put it on Christoph. I'm not going to put it on Young. I'm going to put it on Sebastian. He won in the official race just a couple of weeks ago. He's got some pace around this racetrack and really flexed his muscles there. I think the Europeans may have the upper hand in this race, but certainly Aiden Young going to try and rattle their cage. But keep it on lap 1. That can make or break this race, as it did in the AMs just a few moments ago. This is going to be probably the most important lap that many of these racers, certainly the ones contending for the crown, do in their entire iRacing career.
Conditions pretty much the same as what we saw in the AM class, as we have just 20 minutes to decide the champion this season. Pablo Serrano is still not grinning up either, so it's going to start from the pit lane by the looks of things. Here we go. Christoph and Sebastian Lip on the front row as we get this final race in the Radical Sim Racing Championship for 2025 underway, and the brothers get into line immediately. Young and Diaz as well through turn 1 for the first time. Oh, it's Odo who's getting tripped up with the others though, and the gap from 5th place on backwards is getting very, very large. It's all going to happen into the hairpin for those up front. For those behind, it's about surviving through turn 2, and they have done on this occasion. Now then, Oh, it's a spin in the background indeed. A spin right in front of the field there. But it looks like we've gotten away with it for the most part. Front it's Sikorsky it was who went around. Meantime, what is going to happen for the lead here? Aiden Young gets to the outside of Sebastian Lipp, who defends the inside, but he was slow because he was in behind and he didn't want to hit Christoph Lipp. Oh, they're squeezing. And Young trying to get into second, which will put him in a position to win this title here tonight. Outside line he goes through. This could allow Christoph Lipp out front. Young breaks late. He doesn't get into the side of Lipp though, and he gets in front of Sebastian Lipp. Aiden Young, second place and suddenly in winning position.
Oh, and that was a matter of millimeters as they headed their way through there. That could have ended in disaster so easily, as it certainly ended in disaster for Sikorsky as he headed his way out of turn number 2 through 3, hit the curb, whacked it over, and Arante's gonna go. And as much as he put on a stunner of a drive at Monza 1 week ago to make it into the World Finals, it has not been a good day in the cockpit for him as he's on the back foot. Very clean start to this race, though. Outside that moment for Sikorsky where nobody piled into that, has been a smooth start here at the Hockenheim ring, and now we're set up for a showdown with the top 2 contending for that crown.
Young at the moment, though, is doing enough to see off Lipp by 2 points. Alberto Diaz is not done yet, though, either. Frodo Malo, the same, actually, is in 5th place and looking very close to Diaz on the way in towards turn 2 this time. But Christoph Lipp's speed is going to be difficult to stay with for Aiden Young. That's why it was so important for him to get into second on this opening lap, because he knew that if this got out of hand, then Christoph Lipp would be able to get away very, very easily. As it is, that's not going to happen with Young in second and getting the slipstream all the way down to the hairpin. Here comes Malo. Here comes Odo. 3 wide. Into... Oh, no! Odo down the inside gets turned by Malo, who probably didn't have any choice in the middle there. That was aggression. Odo knew the laps were running out, and he is all the way down to the back of the field.
And Oda, who put together a very strong race at Watkins Glen a little bit earlier on for race number 1, tried to go for the dive, made it 3 wide, and that was gutsy at best, overly opportunistic at its worst. Odo go for the kamikaze dive off into the hairpin, not going to make it work. That thankfully doesn't take out too many racers. Ubaldo Diaz, though, probably had some major damages. Lucas Vieira got punted off into a spin and a 3-car pincer movement down through the Mercedes-Benz arena.
Havik Gullikson involved in it. Oh dear, Havik Gullikson has not had a good night in the World Finals, I'm afraid, despite finishing second in the European Championship overall over the 10 rounds, and he's been scoring very well in our Friday night's broadcasts as well, the official races, but I'm afraid this is not going to be his year. It doesn't at the moment look very good for anyone from Europe, actually. Aiden Young certainly in the best position. Alberto Diaz in a much worse position after that contact with Odo and Malo. And now he's defending from Oscar Soltero and Graham Sanders in behind as well. But Young in the slipstream for the lead right now. Christoph Lipp defending aggressively as well. Lipp knows that he's got to get his brother back in front of Young or he can't win anyway, as Franco Sanchez-Buckley has also been spun through turn 12.
And I want to keep an eye on that battle for 6th between Oscar Soltero, who just jumped up into that spot, over Ubaldo Diaz, who's still running right in front of Graham Sanders. Those drivers were chasing each other's tails as they headed their way out of 1 into 2. And now I think Diaz and Sanders are maybe going to have a side-by-side fight in a few moments' time. Note they keep it single file. In fact, as I say that, they actually do go side-by-side on corner exit. I thought that it was game, set, match for Sanders. He gets shown the door. I think Diaz is going to hold on to that P7 spot, damage control, after losing out on P6 to Soltero right as they headed their way into the hairpin. This battle may end in tears, though, if these racers continue to duke it out. That 21 car of Soltero going to drive off into the sunset as these racers still look to duke it out. George Gonzaga, meanwhile, looking to try and have a better run in this race than he did in race 1 at the Glen. He hasn't ended up upside down yet, but I think he'll look to try and keep it that way in the final 15 minutes of this event.
Unfortunately for Diaz, he spent most of these first 5 minutes losing places, and there's another. Graham Sanders through on him, and he's down to 8th. Diaz's dreams coming to an end, I think, at the Hockenheim tonight, as he drops to 8th position. That is too low of a finishing position to be anywhere near in contention for the overall crown. Young continues in the slipstream of Christoph Lipp here, and Lipp is balancing a very, very difficult thing here, because He wants to get Sebastian into the game and into a position to overtake Young, but if he does that too much, then Christoph Lipp himself will be overtaken. So it's a very, very difficult scenario for him to balance.
And as we look at these racers battling for that top spot, I wonder what's going to be the strategy for Aiden Young, because as much as he may not be in the race lead, the ball is pretty much entirely in his court. Do you try and force this issue? Do you try and make that lunge to jump your way up into the race lead? Or are you going to be comfortable running in P2? As much as you've got Sebastian Lipp right behind you, looks like he's kind of got the better of him when it comes to pace. So I'm actually going to put you on the spotlight here, Ewan, and ask you what you would do if you were in Aiden Young's shoes. Would you try and get this moved on a Christoph Lipp just to give yourself a little bit of insurance? Or are you going to try and take it easy, run in second, and try and play the defensive game on Sebastian Lipp?
Well, at the moment, I think Lipp's going fast enough for it not to be a problem, and I think he can stick behind in second okay right now, and not worry about being overtaken behind. But if this gets a bit silly later on, then yeah, I would be going through. Maybe he's too close to ignore this opportunity at the moment, because less than 0.3 of a second is the gap, and as they come out the corner, it's going to be even less than that again. So Christoph Lipp's in big trouble now, and he's got to defend hard from Aiden Young. But then again, of course, he can't really do anything else, doesn't have any other option here. Young in second is not enough for Christoph Lipp, who he now gets alongside here, Aiden Young. Outside line into the hairpin. This is where he's going to find it very, very difficult. And Lipp just tries to edge him out wide. He goes for the up and under, does Aiden Young. Very smart. And he'll try and get the exit. They're pretty even as they come towards the fast right-hander. It's close between the two. Lipp's off the road, and he has to tuck in, does he? He's still on the inside here, continuing this side-by-side. The advantage is that his brother's in behind, and Young's getting edged off. Oh, Christoph Lipp's into a spin. Aiden Young makes contact with Christoph Lipp, who spins out on the lead. And Aiden Young now, oh no, as he rejoins. Trouble here as into the barrier. Christoph Lipp is dropping down this field, and his championship defense is over.
Oh my goodness. We're expecting drama, and drama we got. Aiden Young now holds on to the race lead over Sebastian Lipp, over Alfredo Malo, but Christoph Lipp, it was going to be an outside shot. Even with that third in race number one, he knew he had to have perfection and would have to hope for lightning to strike on Aiden Young. Sadly, that lightning struck him. We'll have to take a look at a replay to see all of that. That was two of the best in these SR10s battling it out. Your two champions in 25, trying to battle for a world final championship, and it got ugly quick.
Well, Lipp was trying to... Oh, hello, grandstand. He was trying to edge off Young here, who has a right to stay alongside there, but nevertheless, Lipp will be disappointed that that's happened, and then rejoins right in the path of... Is that Butterfoot? Oh, Sanders, sorry.
That's Graham
in
Sanders,
the Saltbeck car. Yeah. And that wasn't a good rejoin, unfortunately, from Christoph Lipp, but he's not used to having to do them. Sebastian Lipp, meantime, gets to the lead here, and Aiden Young's now got to make sure this doesn't get silly, because he could very much lose his head here and therefore lose the title. But he's got to remember, his two closest rivals have fallen by the wayside. He's now looking at the likes of Alfredo Malo to overtake him here, and if this gets silly, then it could happen here. But he knows that any podium position here, I think any top four actually, would be good enough at the moment for Aiden Young. Indeed, it would be. Fourth place or better would be good enough. This, I'm afraid, is a pretty bad rejoin from Christoph Lipp, I'm afraid.
Yeah, really nothing that Graham Sanders could have done there. You're at terminal velocity as you head your way through that section of the racetrack in these SR10s. That was heading through turn number 10 when that rejoin took place. He didn't know that that was going to happen. Sanders, I believe, actually picked up a penalty, potentially for incident points, as a result of all of that. They're down the pit lane, though. Major damage on those race cars. That's not going to matter too much. They're effectively done for in this fight. Now, though, we got to think about how Aiden Young wants to tackle this. He is right at the front of an angry train of race cars. You got Christoph's brother Sebastian right in front. You got Alfredo Malo, who's looking to impress. James Barry, who's looking to cap off what's been a frankly miserable 2025 for him, with maybe a good result here in these World Finals. But never mind that. I thought Young was going to take it easy. No, he's going to make it the middle, be the me and that sandwich down into three wide action through the hairpin. I don't like that from Young, if I'm being honest. You're in such a good spot. Why do this?
Well, he is trying to make sure this doesn't become silly and make sure he doesn't go down to 5th, but this is a bit puzzling. Sebastian Lip defending for all his worth as if his brother's still there. Oh, and Marlowe spins now. The best chance has also gone for Alfredo Marlowe. Another driver forced by the wayside in these World Finals. He's down to the bottom end of the top 10. Marlowe had a chance there if he'd have got through on Young and pushed him a bit further down the group, as it was looking like was likely at one time. Suddenly, Marlowe is out of the picture. And who do we look to next? James Barry is the best who could possibly take this away, but a 5th place or better for Young would be fine, even if Young wins this race. And suddenly, or Barry wins this race, suddenly Alfredo Marlowe's out of the picture as well.
Yeah, as we see that moment from Mallow spinning around as they headed their way off through turn number 8, that got silly real quick. I really respect the driver that Aiden Young is. I've talked about him being a very talented racer. Of course, he puts in some good performances, don't get me wrong, but that was a little bit silly from him, if I'm being completely honest. I understand feeling a pressure as your, at one point, championship rival, rivals teammates are around you, including his own brother. I don't understand why Young is fighting this so hard. You go for all that glory, and the process of that, it could very well end in disaster for him as he looks for the move around the outside. Sebastian Lip through the hairpin, not going to work out for him this time. I just don't understand the level of aggression. It's like trying to kill off a spider with a machine gun.
I mean, he's seeing Sebastian Lip defending from him hard here, and he wants to get past that, and you can absolutely understand it, but at the moment, say 5th place is enough. At the moment, Sebastian Lip wants the second group to catch up, but they're 4 seconds behind. They're squabbling amongst themselves. Suddenly, Aiden Young is the only driver in this top 5 who was in the top 5 first time round, along with James Barry. This is Diego Zuccarelli, by the way, who's down to 16th place. He was in front of Marlowe at one stage in 8th. Oh, and that's Marlowe who couldn't do anything but hit him there. As Zuccarelli goes for a spin. Yeah, this is why Young wants to get through. Sebastian Lip is defending hard here because he wants to try and help James Barry get the best position possible in this championship. And at the moment, Young is caught right in the middle of all this.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest, I hadn't noticed it before how much Sebastian Lip is overslowing it through this racetrack, and there's not any major damage on that car either. He's pretty much parking the bus at every opportunity, trying to back him up, but is it really worth doing that? Frankly, I mean, Christoph's out of it. He's down the pits. He had to tow. That's game, set, match for him. Ubaldo Diaz, who finished second in race number 1, is currently running down in 7th, about 6.5 seconds off of these racers. I'm not really sure what's in it for Sebastian Lip to try and do this outside of maybe winning this race, but even then, that doesn't really matter too much at the end of the day.
So, James Barry making the odd decision there to stay in behind. Young, sorry. Odo's a long way down. Young there. Oscar Soltero is the other one involved here, by the way. Oh, and teammates in the background. Friedrich and Gonzaga making contact. If James Barry's going to win this, then they need to be up here, but they're not going to do that if they make contact with 6.5 minutes to go. Young on the outside again is Sebastian Lip, who continues to defend and continues to hold on to this race lead. Soltero's in front of James Barry, for whom this race is just getting worse now. This is just a bizarre world final, but exhilarating one, you've got to say as well. It's been all happening in these first 15 minutes. There's going to be quite a battle for the race win itself in the final 6.
It is going to be a fantastic fight as we get into the final 6 minutes of this race. I mean, this race length is even shorter than some of the official broadcasts that we do, and we know how crazy and frenetic and hair-raising those races can get. Crank that up with some more prizes at stake outside of just bragging rights, and you're going to see these racers throw caution to the wind and duke it out as hard as they possibly can. I think something's going on with Sikorsky. He's once again dropping down, was running in P16. He's now maybe going to drop outside the top 20, in fact. Something major has just happened to him a few moments ago, but either way, this battling up in the front still intense. Ubaldo Diaz has been able to jump in front of George Gonzaga, but that's not going to matter too much unless Aiden Young runs into some trouble, which based off the fact that Lip is running him all over the track, I wouldn't rule that out.
No, he's pinned to the left-hand side here. Young, one of his better exits in recent times. Will Barry be able to get down the inside of both of them here as his teammate tries to help him out? No, Lip doesn't edge him off the road completely. completely hit. Oh, Young up the curb there. Oh my goodness, that was close. Young up the curb, and again, he was forced there by Lip. That was just on the edge of what you can do, but it was certainly legal. Here comes Young. Is he defending? Is he attacking? He's sort of doing both there at the same time here on James Barry, who tucks underneath him and doesn't get alongside in time. Again, Young survives in second. The nerves that he will be experiencing right now, I'd imagine, are incredible, because this is just continuing on, and Young cannot get clear of it.
Oh, his heart has got to be pumping out of his chest, and rightfully so, running in second in a train of cars that all seem to want his head on a stake. I mean, I'm going to be honest, the moves that Sebastian Lip is pulling off, they are borderline, but the fact that it's been going on for so long in this race, if I were Aiden Young, I'd be understandably ticked off. If it was like a real-life race, I'd probably want to have a firm discussion afterwards, and this is getting a little bit out of hand if I am being completely honest. Christoph Lip is running all over the racetrack, pulling off blocks where he doesn't need to. Look at that wiggle as he headed his way out of 1 into 2, trying to break that draft. James Barry's going to try to apply the pressure even more. I'm just not really liking the maneuvers I'm seeing from Christoph Lip. Sebastian Lip, my apologies. I understand it's the heat of the moment, but still.
Here he goes, defending again. Much further to the inside this time, squeezing Young again though. James Barry just cannot get involved. Young breaks late, and here he goes, James Barry. He's going to get through here. Oh, and Lip goes too deep as well. James Barry leads this race, and suddenly Aiden Young is side by side with Oscar Soltero. He's still in second. He's still behind an Inerti Racing Team driver, but it's James Barry this time who's on the inside line. Here comes Young round the outside. He can't do that there. And again, there's a change for the lead. James Barry is out front in this race, in front of Aiden Young, then Lip, then Soltero. But again, Aiden Young only needs to finish in the top 5 here. And that, with only 4 in this group, is looking very, very easy.
Yeah, I think Aiden Young, even though he went wide, went off the track, probably has a little bit of damage on that race car and more incident points than he once did as we get to the end of this race. I think he's in a better spot now than he was a matter of 1 lap ago. Granted, you still have Christoph Lip right in tow, but it's a lot better to be the defending car than the attacking cars we saw from Young and Lip's battles earlier on in this race. Now, what's the strategy going to be for James Barry? If Barry defends this just as hard as Lip did, I think we'll be able to tell that it was a team decision instead of just a driver decision. We do have to mention this, obviously. Sebastian Lip, the brother of Christoph, I can imagine he is understandably upset with how his brother's race went, which could have been the reason why he was defending as hard as he was. Now, though, with Barry and Young being the ones to fight, let's see how this battle shakes out now.
Young to the inside again. Sebastian Lip looks like he wants to make it 3 wide down the inside there. Barry confusingly not defending the inside here. Wonder whether he's trying to get Young in front of him so he can overtake him on the last lap maybe, but that would be somewhat surprising, I think. So Young leads this race again, and surely he's ever closer now to a World Finals victory. Sebastian Lip wants to go down the inside. Look at it, they're attacking him from all angles here. Young is defending very well though, and Barry and Lip are now side by side, the 2 teammates. And Lip goes very wide to avoid contact with his teammate, and Oscar Soltero gets to 3rd. A bizarre battle that is going to be drawing to a close in 1 lap's time.
Yeah, bizarre really is the one way that you could describe all of this. I mean, Sebastian Lip, usually calm, cool, and collected in these battles. He's been racing like an absolute maniac throughout. I mean, some points in time, it's given us some exciting moments. Other points in time, it's given us contact. He's dropped down to 4th when he was holding on to the race lead a matter of a few moments ago. So it seems like he's had the self-preservation skills of a cranberry, frankly, and all that battling. But either way you slice it, Aiden Young, now on that final lap, he's going to try and grab the victory, make it 2 for 2 and win the 2025 Radical World Finals, but he has still got a hungry group of hippos right behind.
Yeah, Lip will be disappointed he's dropped to 4th because it's probably too far back, and it definitely is now. Soltero goes wide, and they're battling each other out the battle now, Lip and Soltero, so there they go. It's going to be between Young and Barry, and here comes James Barry now, running around the inside of the Parabolica. Young taking the long line, but he's not giving up any draft, so that's why he's doing it. Barry to the outside, trying to get Young to go deep here, but he doesn't make a mistake yet again. He won the first race, did Aiden Young, and maybe he's on his way to winning the second too.
as there's nearly a collision right behind involving Soltero and Lip, still keeping on that number 2 car. It already showed that he is not afraid to die trying to grab the win, but they're just running out of opportunities now. Young, all he needs to do is just defend through the final sector, and not only will he get the 2 for 2, but also wrap up an American sweep of the 2025 Radical World Finals, only a few turns now from home.
They just go progressively wider there. Young, Barry and Lip fighting for the win here. But Aiden Young has survived this roller coaster race. He was at some stages tonight in big danger of losing this title, but he's fended off teams around him, drivers around him, and in the end, he is the Radical Sim Racing World Champion for 2025. He takes the double. He wins at Watkins Glen and the Hockenheim, and he is the 2025 champion in dramatic circumstances. Aiden Young takes race 2.
And what a fight back from Young. What a fight back from the American contingent here in the 2025 Radical World Finals. After the bitter disappointment of 2024, where they were completely shut out, they were giving the Europeans a taste of their own medicine, shutting the Europeans down here. You had Jared Dunkovic getting the double in the AMS race. Young gets a double here in the pros. They walk away with a World Finals championship. What a day.
Yeah, indeed. What a great final race as well. So much drama. I wonder what Christoph Lipp is going to have to say about it. Unfortunately, I don't think we're going to be able to chat to him at the end tonight. But Aiden Young wins this race, and indeed, he is the champion in these World Finals. James Barry and Christoph Lipp did their best, but couldn't do enough in the end. They finished 2nd and 3rd, with Oscar Soltero 4th. Andreas Friedrich then 5th, ahead of Alfredo Malo in 6th place. George Gonzaga, John Butterfield, Heinz Braun, Obada Diaz were all involved in that big group and rounded out the top 10. 11th place in the end went to Ketil Larsen, ahead of Havik Gullikson, who had a difficult evening. Had to audio coachings overall, actually. Sully Rettenham finished 13th, ahead of Diego Zuccarelli and Franco Sanchez-Buckley. Christos Travain and Bruno Vittorino and Franit Sikorski were all involved in that group as well. Ryan Odo dropped down to 19th, with Mehmet Berat-Akers rounding out the top 20. Graham Sanders retired from that race, as did Christoph Lipp in their crash. Luca Fiera retired 3 laps in. Well, we should probably go back to the big moment of the day here, Ron, and that incident between Aiden Young and Christoph Lipp there about halfway through this race. They finished 1st and 3rd respectively at Watkins Glen, and therefore they were fighting hard for the win here at Hockenheim, and Lipp wanted to make sure that Young finished in 3rd or lower in that race, because that would have brought him into the game as far as the World Finals were concerned. But in the end, it just went all wrong. I've got to say, from looking at it live, I thought Young just held his ground on the inside of that corner, but you can see why Lipp would be sort of aggravated, because there definitely was contact that sent him around and ended his season.
Yeah, it got ugly in that battle. It got ugly quick between those racers, and it was a shame that it came down to that as well, because I would have loved to see just a heads-up fight between Aiden Young and Christoph Lipp, but it didn't go that way. Aiden Young gonna be walking away with the World Finals crown, but I'm sure Christoph Lipp is not going to be a fan. I think that frustration kind of showed in the way that Sebastian Lipp was defending towards the end, if I'm being completely honest, but I can understand Christoph Lipp's frustration. Had a fantastic shot to try and win it. It just doesn't come up that way.
And as you say, a big win for the Americas region as well, but we'll hold that thought and chat to the man himself, Aiden Young, who is our champion this season. Aiden, welcome in. Good to have you with us. Talk us through the roller coaster of emotions you must have experienced through that race, and to come out the other side with the victory in the end. How are you feeling at the end of that one?
Pretty good. Yeah, I don't know how I managed to survive that. I mean, that was a crazy race. Definitely a lot more aggressive drivers than, just the normal America series, but it was fun. I mean, some people tried to bully me, but I won't let them, because you try to bully me, I'm gonna hold my ground. So yeah, but it was a good race. I don't have too many words to describe it, but yeah, both races were a lot of fun. First race I probably could have done a better strategy, but it still got the win, so can't really say too much about it. And then the second race was just fighting for your life to try and get the win, and to come off with the double win to win the World Finals. And world championship, I guess I could say, it's amazing. So I'm gonna keep this short because I've got to get to Virginia International for Skip Barber. But it was good racing in the Radical Series all year, and you guys provided some great commentary and great moments.
Well, thanks very much. I'll let you get off and get to where you need to be. But congrats, Aiden, on the win tonight, and thanks for coming for a quick word as well at the end.
Yep, no problem.
Thanks very much, Aiden Young. Off elsewhere, just a lot of busy driver today on the Sunday, but he is your World Finals champion. Now, trying to decipher who might be second in the standings overall. James Barry's got to be in with a shout, considering he's got 46 points, but there's a number of others around him. Marlowe might have a decent chance, although I think it will be James Barry. So we'll chat to him to finish second in that race anyway as well. And James, welcome in. Good to have you with us. Second place in race 2, and I think second place in the World Finals in total, although I'm entirely not sure, if I'm honest with you. How was that second race, though? It was a good battle to watch between the four of you. How was it from inside the car?
Yeah, it was just fun. For me, there was no pressure because after the first race, I thought, 4 super quick guys who I'd have to beat to have a chance of winning the whole thing, which for me is kind of a dream. Against so many fast drivers, I qualified, 10th and something, 7th or something in each race, so it just goes to show how high the competition is. But I don't know, I just found myself at the front, and it must have been a super exciting race. I don't know if my dad is still alive at home, he might have had a heart attack watching that. For me, I was trying to keep myself calm because I was looking at who's around me, and I was thinking how many positions I would need to beat Aiden by to have a chance. And then the last lap, maybe I could have attacked him, but I don't know. I thought I don't want to risk too much, which looking back is a bit silly. I was also wondering if there's any chance of a penalty because I saw he got contact with Christoph. Do you have any info on that? I don't know what's happening.
I don't think so. I haven't heard anything, so
No.
I would doubt it. But yeah, as you say, there was quite a lot of things that needed to happen. But have you found the year in total? As you say, it's an incredibly competitive field at the end of the year to have here in the World Finals. How do you? How pleased are you with what looks like it could be a second place finish at the end of this season?
Well, yeah, second. I mean, to be honest, it's mega. And it just goes to show the value of kind of patience and smart driving, because for me it's been a long learning journey. In the last year I had a lot of success in 2024. This year's been a bit of a call-off year, but I've still made progress as a driver because the competition's just gone up so much. But to show that, even when I'm qualifying 7th and 10th, I can still get second place in a World Finals is pretty bloody amazing. And hats off to Aiden if he does get the win without any protests. Just fair play. He was the one who survived all the chaos.
Yeah, he certainly did. Congratulations to yourself as well for surviving and finishing second in race 2 in particular, and thanks for chatting to us at the end tonight as well.
Yeah, cheers a lot, guys, and thanks to everyone. Cheers. See you.
Thanks very much. That's James Barry, second place at Hockenheim, and we believe in the World Finals overall as well, but all subject to post-race review and stuff as well. Let's have a chat to some more drivers who were involved in the front tonight. Obardo Diaz gets 2 top 10 finishes and joins us now as well. Obardo, welcome. Good to have you with us. Congrats on a good run in the World Finals here tonight. How pleased are you with your performance?
Yeah, honestly, to say it's been heartbreaking would be an understatement. I think first race was great. The fight with Aiden was super close. It came down to the last lap, and we checked the replay afterwards. The contact on bus stop was completely netcode. It wouldn't have happened if this wasn't a sim, but I guess it's how it goes sometimes. And race 2 was a little different, and yeah, unfortunately got collected on a crash on the hairpin lap 2, and it just completely ruined my race. From there on, I just had to survive. But yeah, overall, I think I did a good performance. It didn't go my way today, but we have to keep pushing,
Absolutely. What are you going to take away from this season and these particular 2 races as well into next season? Competing against the European guys as well as the Americas. You put up a good fight, of course. But what are you going to take from tonight towards next year?
I'd probably take that the field is pretty close. Like if the Americas field is close, like this is another level completely. Super close. And when everyone's a pro and the grid is like 24 cars, it gets a little more intense. So I'll probably just take the experience, the strategy. I don't think it's going to change much unless iRacing updates something. The races were great, and Watkins Glen has a lot of draft. I learned that too.
Yeah, certainly does. Well, congrats on good performances tonight. 2 top 10s for yourself, Bodo, and thanks for chatting to us at the end tonight as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks very much. Bodo Diaz, 2 top 10s tonight, and we'll be somewhere around that. Maybe in top 5 in the World Finals at the end when all the points are calculated, but that's going to take some calculation. Ryan Oda, the last driver there waiting for us, and we'll chat to him too. Ryan, welcome in. Good to have you with us. How you feeling at the end of race number 2 in particular tonight? Unfortunately, an unscheduled pit stop after an incident on the second lap for you at the Hockenheim.
Yeah, it was quite terrible. I mean, no excuses for that move on, I think, Zubaldo and Alfredo. That was completely stupid, and I went for a gap that never existed anyways, and ended up putting both of them. So yeah, that was my fault, but I mean, I guess that's what happens when you get sick during the whole entire time when you don't get any sort of practice at all. I mean, I lost out on at least 7 hours of practice, and I'm still sick, so that's not good. But yeah, still no excuses. I most definitely should not have gone for that move, and yeah, I feel like if I wasn't sick, it would have been maybe a little better, and I could have maybe challenged a little bit more for the champion or World Finals title, but I guess there's nothing that you can do.
How are you sort of assessing your performance overall in 2025, though, taking everything into account, the second place in the Americas Championship as well, just falling short against Aiden Young, and what's happened tonight? How are you sort of assessing your 2025 year with the Radical Sim Racing Championship?
Yeah, well, I mean, didn't go as much as I wanted it to go, but I also had a couple of unlucky moments and then also a couple of really good moments, so I guess that's what you get, but at least I learned a lot, and at least next season I'll come in armed with a whole extra book of knowledge. Well,
thanks for coming to chat to us at the end tonight, Ryan, and congrats again on some good performances tonight, especially at Watkins Glen and all year. Thanks for chatting to us.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Ryan Odo, chatting to us at the end there. Final thoughts from yourself, Ron, as we bid farewell for the Radical Sim Racing Championship in 2025. Finally, a day for the Americas region after years of European domination, especially in the pro class. It's Americas region doing the double here tonight at Watkins Glen on Hockenheim with Jarek Dunkovic and Aiden Young.
Yeah, it was certainly a fantastic day for the Americas contingent. We talked about that enough on this broadcast. I just want to say, what a day for Radical Sim Racing, period. Through the slight controversy and certainly the drama and some maybe frayed nerves at the end of a very heart-pumping day of racing action, that was absolutely incredible. We did not run out of things to talk about all throughout. What an amazing series. What an amazing community as well. I've had the privilege of covering Radical Sim Racing action since Season 1 of 2023. It's always been my distinct honor. I've been very happy to be back here now on RaceSpot covering the America's Championship and these World Finals. What a year of action. What a day of action. Through all the smoke and the drama and drivers walking away with championships, I think at the core of it, we just had an amazing day of racing action.
Yeah, we certainly did. 4 races over the last 3.5 hours. Hope you've enjoyed them on RaceSpotTV tonight as well. I've been Jon O'Leary alongside Ron Mounds with Ramiro Augustin Cisneros behind the cameras here for the Radical Sim Racing Championship World Finals in 2025. That is it for our calendar year. We'll be back, of course, every Friday from now for the next couple of weeks for the end of 2025 in the official series of the Radical Esports Cup. So I hope to see you then. Until then, though, until the 2026 Radical Sim Racing Championship, it's goodbye from all of us here, and we'll see you again next year.